Well, hello there, everybody. How we all doing? July 4th, happy Independence Day, happy 4th of July. Hope everyone's having a great day, spend time with their family, doing what they can. We're going to get right into the news here and see what we got going on. Oh, look, there's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You're all going to become part of that ongoing effort, that experiment to see if we can govern ourselves with justice and fairness for all, and if we can work together to form a more perfect union that we can hand off to our children and their children. You've earned that place because of your hard work and your extraordinary efforts. George Washington often noted that the decisions of his generation would affect unborn millions. That if Americans were not entirely free and happy, the fault would be their own. That's the whole point of having a free nation. You get to choose your future. And if we aren't free and happy, it is going to be all of our failure. We all have to make those choices to try to make this the best place it can be. And that is our gift, and that's the burden of self-governance. And I'm very excited that you're going to be sharing in this with us all. Today's ceremony is very important to you. It's very important to our national story. Welcoming new citizens from distant and foreign lands was an ideal born at the American founding itself. In fact, today you're going to recreate the revolutionary action of America's founding generation to freely choose to become part of a new nation, the United States of America. It was the choice that George Washington made. He wasn't born an American citizen. And there could be no more appropriate place for a ceremony such as this than at the home of our country's most famous founding father, and no more appropriate day than Independence Day. I envy you this exciting moment in your lives. You were born again in liberty on the birthday of America, and we are thrilled that you are here. Cheering, applause, tough crowd, tough crowd. I want to thank the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service and our distinguished guests who join us today in celebration. Deputy Secretary Edgar, Mr. Calkins, Ms. Kristoff, Ms. Heaton, thank you so much for your partnership. I would also like to thank the Mount Vernon chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, as well as the George Washington chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution for their dedication and support of Mount Vernon and all our programs today. And on behalf, let's hear it for the DAR and the SAR. Okay. And on behalf of the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, let me extend a warm welcome and a thank you to Governor Schwarzenegger. We're honored to have you with us today. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Madeline Kristoff. Ms. Kristoff serves as the Washington District Deputy Director for United States Citizen and Immigration Services and has served in various roles within USCIS for 13 years. Let's thank her for her incredible service for our nation and welcome her to the lectern. Mrs. Kristoff. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Bradburn, for welcoming us all here today. I am thrilled to welcome you, your family, friends, and guests to today's special naturalization ceremony here at George and Martha Washington's Mount Vernon. I also want to thank the wonderful team here at Mount Vernon for hosting us on this really special day. I'm honored to also introduce to you the distinguished guests who have joined me here today to celebrate your citizenship. You've already met Dr. Douglas Bradburn, President and CEO of George Washington's Mount Vernon. We also have Arnold Schwarzenegger, the 38th Governor of California. Troy Edgar, Deputy Secretary.
So what do we got down here? Fireworks? Somebody blew up a car or something? Burned down the house?
Prominent boxer has been detained by immigration officials. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fought influencer Jake Paul just last week.
80s and 90s. It's a mixed bag anywhere from Atlanta up into Minneapolis, well above average for this time of year. But luckily, once those storms push through, temperatures start to cool down into the upper Midwest, but we're starting to warm up over into the West Coast. I'll keep you updated on that here in the Weather Center. For now, over to you, Vlad.
All right, Jess, thank you very much, and thanks for your service on this 4th of July. Appreciate it. On this 4th of July, fireworks are being blamed for a pair of house explosions in California. One person was killed yesterday when this garage blew up, causing a house fire in Simi Valley near Los Angeles. In the Bay Area, another home caught fire in the town of Hayward, leaving 2 people hurt. Police believe illegal fireworks were being made inside that home. Meanwhile, 7 people are still unaccounted for.
Jeez.
A massive explosion at a fireworks
Guys.
Tuesday night outside Sacramento. Firefighters cannot get to the site because they believe it is still unsafe.
Yeah.
A prominent boxer has been detained by
Interesting.
immigration officials. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fought influencer Jake Paul just last week. Now officials confirm he's in custody being processed for deportation.
What?
Chavez has been accused of ties to the Sinaloa drug cartel, though
Oh.
he's never been charged in the U.S. Chavez is a former WBC middleweight champion. Speaking to the New York Times, his attorney calls the allegations against him outrageous.
Turning now to disturbing videos.
I don't know the evidence.
Involving
I
US
mean,
contractors who are guarding some aid sites. Since May, hundreds of Palestinians
innocent until proven guilty, I guess.
while trying to get food and medicine, according to local officials. Now, newly leaked footage appears to show Americans celebrating after someone gets shot.
What?
The U.S. group has denied any wrongdoing. Deborah Pata has the story.
This was the scene
What?
at a Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid site filmed last month by an American security contractor and given to our partner, the BBC. Thousands of Palestinians herded into a long fenced-off corridor, forced into a demeaning scramble for food amid bullets and stun grenades.
Jeez.
Then the unmistakable sound of American accents. The contractor spoke on condition his identity was concealed.
When this guy was shooting into this group, this man dropped to the ground and was motionless.
GHF said the person heard shouting in the video had been removed from the site, but gave no further detail. The contractor said at the time he'd taken the matter to the top.
And the leadership said to me, well, you have no way of knowing that person was hit with a bullet. Maybe they tripped. Maybe they were tired and they passed out.
Earlier this week, we asked GHF Director Johnny Moore about the rising death toll of people trying to access aid at their sites.
And yet every single day we wake up to, in the West, or our team is operating, simultaneously in the Middle East, to this piece of disinformation that is just without any scrutiny whatsoever, while we're facing all the scrutiny in the world.
The U.S. has approved a direct grant of $30 million for GHF, but the group has not disclosed the rest of its funding. And the controversy around its operational procedures is growing, with the contractors saying they were given explicit rules of engagement.
You have the inherent right of self-defense. If there's anything that you feel uncomfortable with, shoot and ask questions later.
The United Nations says they have recorded 613 deaths near GHF sites and humanitarian convoys. That's the figure as of a week ago. Since then, there have been more mass casualties every day. Nancy?
Deborah Pata in East Jerusalem. Thank you.
Turning to Ukraine now, where overnight Russia launched its largest aerial assault yet, targeting cities nationwide, including the capital, Kyiv. The Russian military fired more than 500 drones and missiles, and many hit residential buildings and infrastructure. At least 27 people were hurt. The strikes came just hours after a phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump says he was very disappointed with that call. He'll be talking with Ukraine's president this morning.
In this morning's Money Watch, the government released a better-than-expected jobs report for June yesterday, suggesting the economy is resilient for now.
Yeah, I heard all about that. I know. Okay.
River from Washington, D.C. Soon we're going to be hearing from former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger as he's delivering the keynote address. This is a naturalization ceremony where people from across the globe are taking the oath to become U.S. citizens. We're hearing right now all those countries that do make up this ceremony. But I did want to share this poll with you again. We're going to go away for another break here in just a moment. I just wanted to ask you again, how are you celebrating the 4th of July? And many of you have weighed in. A lot of you are going to be cooking out. That's what's winning right now. If you'd like to still weigh in, head to livenowfox.com/connect or scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Again, how are you celebrating the 4th of July? We'd love to hear from you. And if you do want to watch some fireworks, but you don't want to head out for them, you can watch them tonight here on Live Now from Fox, all starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be bringing that to you. Here's that programming note. Again, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, if you would like to watch the fireworks across the country, we'll be bringing that to you uninterrupted here tonight. And if you are just joining us, thank you so much. My name is Christy Matino. Happy 4th of July. We'll be right back with more coverage.
So overall, report is strong, but you peel back the onion and it reveals some questions about whether this is sustainable.
A lot of good questions right there. And Kelly, I was going to say Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell under a lot of pressure, especially from the president, to lower interest rates. Do you think this report is going to impact that decision at all?
So I think this report gives the Fed license to wait and see where tariffs impact inflation over the next few months. You're probably not going to see a change in interest rates when they meet in July. That being said, not everyone feels that way because that state and local government hiring I mentioned, it's seasonal. So people are arguing, hey, we saw that slow down in the private sector. People are taking longer to get jobs. Maybe there should be a more robust debate about whether we get a cut.
All right, we'll see. Kelly, always good to have you at the table. Happy Independence Day.
Me too.
All right, like most holidays, while we're out celebrating, our police will be working hard to keep us safe. And there is no bigger gathering to watch fireworks than at the Macy's event right here in New York City. Nikki Batiste got a rare look at how the NYPD is handling security. Nikki, good morning.
Vlad, good morning. This year, the fireworks celebration will return to New York City's East River, home to the Brooklyn Bridge. The New York Police Department's Harbor Patrol will be out on the water behind me, using advanced technology to help keep the city safe this Independence Day.
Before fireworks light up the sky tonight in New York, the city's police department is working behind the scenes and even at sea to keep people safe. Rebecca Weiner is the NYPD's Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism.
What's your plan going into this holiday?
So this is a significant deployment for us, second only to New Year's Eve in Times Square.
We took a ride with her on one of the many police boats monitoring the river.
In the Intel and Counterterrorism Bureau, we are protecting the city from land, of course, also from the skies, and importantly, given the nature of this event, from the sea.
That includes scanning for potential radioactive threats like dirty bombs with onboard sensors.
All the radiation sensors that we have are capable of detecting even slight anomalies with radiation. That includes gamma radiation, that includes neutron radiation, which would be typical components to possibly have a dirty bomb.
Millions are expected to gather along the East River for tonight's fireworks, but it comes amid increasing tensions overseas, particularly in the Middle East since the start of the Israel-Gaza war.
What's your biggest concern this holiday?
So this is a really complicated threat environment. It has been heightened since October 7th. There's always the concern around lone actor threat.
The NYPD says it's deploying thousands of uniformed officers on the ground and a heavy presence in the skies.
To people who are worried about being in a crowd or out in the city on the holiday, what would you say?
You will see an enhanced police presence. We're here to keep you safe, so that you just have to focus on looking at the fireworks.
The Brooklyn Bridge will be closed for much of today. The fireworks display will launch from 4 barges stationed along the river. So far, the NYPD says there are no known credible threats to today's celebrations. Nancy?
Can't wait to be out there. Nikki, thank you very much. Ahead for us.
That's good to hear.
So help me God. Congratulations. Woo! All right. May I go ahead and be seated, please? On behalf of President Trump, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security, it's my honor to be the first to address you as my fellow citizens. Woo! It's a distinct privilege for me to join in this event with you today, and an important milestone in your lives, and as you officially become a citizen of this great nation. I want to thank a few people here today, starting with the President Washington for opening his home up to us today. How awesome is this? I can think of any more appropriate time or place to have an event like this. I also want to thank Ann Neal Petrie and the Mount Vernon Ladies Association for helping us arrange this special ceremony, and the staff of USCIS, or United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and the Washington Field Office for all their work supporting and interviewing everybody for this event. Thank you guys, really appreciate it. What a perfect day to become an American citizen as we start your journey on the 249th anniversary of our country and the Declaration of Independence. The one thing that has not changed in this country is the commitment and our courage and the vision for the 4th of July. This year, we're marking the occasion by welcoming the new citizens at over 300 ceremonies across the United States. And like this, these new U.S. citizens have chosen to make the United States of America their home. You have all chosen this to have a common home, but a common future with your fellow citizens. I also want to recognize a couple key people here today that have already started to serve in our nation's armed services. I'd like to recognize these few courageous new Americans, and if you wouldn't mind when I mention your name, if you'd please rise. Specialist Francisco Ismael Sandoval Azcorbing. God bless you. And stay standing, Lance Corporal Luis Andres Vesquez Lasso. Thank you for everything you've done for this country, and having served in the U.S. Navy myself, I just wanted to tell you thank you, and I understand your dedication to the country, and everybody here appreciates your service. Thank you so much. Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. Today, we're going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger coming up here, but for me personally, this is a very special ceremony. My wife she sat in the same seat you guys did 40 years ago. She's from Iran. My wife, Betty Sarkis, is she here? Betty? Yeah, so that's my wife. So just kind of an idea, this is one of the most special things that I get to do as the Deputy Secretary, is my wife came here, didn't speak English, left Iran during the persecution of Christians 40 years ago, came here, got 2 degrees, a school teacher, and serves in Little Saigon in Orange County, California as a teacher for almost 30 years. This is her American dream, and for all of you, this is the beginning of your American dream. I'm just so excited for you. Thank you, Betty. So now the real fun part. It's my pleasure to introduce someone that demonstrates just how much a naturalized citizen can accomplish in the United States. Since he's become an American citizen more than 40 years ago, he has unparalleled success in the motion picture industry. More importantly, he's worked tirelessly to give back to this country. He's helped provide for after-school and summer athletic programs for our children. Thank you, Arnold. He's also founded the USC Schwarzenegger Institute for State and Global Policy for USC. Thank you. And as many of you guys know, he served as the 38th governor of the state of California, and he was my governor for all that time. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. That's exactly the way I wrote it. But anyway, I just had, first of all, good morning and happy 4th of July. I just had the great pleasure of laying a wreath at George Washington's tomb. And I have to tell you something, that I was really touched by this whole idea. Because when I came to this country 57 years ago, not in my wildest dreams, and I had wild dreams about becoming a most muscular man in the world, becoming a movie star, making a lot of money, becoming rich and famous and all that kind of stuff. But not, exactly, that's why I said most muscular man. You got to learn how to listen. Remember, God gave you 2 ears and only 1 mouth. But in any case, what I'm saying is, I was saying to myself, 57 years ago when I came to this country, not in my wildest dreams did I think about that one day this immigrant will be asked to lay a wreath at George Washington's tomb and to be asked to give the keynote speech at this spectacular event here today. So I feel absolutely delighted to be here. Absolutely, thank you. Thank you. And of course, after being here at Mount Vernon, I've decided that in my next movie, I'm going to play George Washington. And Danny DeVito will play Jefferson. Oh no, maybe actually I have a better idea. Maybe Mrs. Washington. How about that, huh? Wouldn't that be cool? Now, actually, talking about making movies, I just finished a movie called The Man with the Bag. It's a Christmas movie where I play Santa Claus. And Santa Claus is, of course, all about giving. But today, however, you've given me a great gift. And that gift is to be part of this very meaningful ceremony. You know, I was told that there are thousands of spectators out there. And I have to say, you're a really good-looking crowd. Man, look at them all, smiling and everything. Well, I'm very excited that you're here. And I want to thank you all for coming. Big, big hand to all of you. But actually, I came to talk to these 100 people that are sitting right here in front. To these 100 people that have just become American citizens. To these new Americans, I say thank you for sharing this wonderful day with me. And also your journey, which we also share since I'm an immigrant too. If a U.S. ambassador or historian were here in my place this morning, he or she would probably start out with some relevant quote by Washington, right? It will be about democracy and citizenship and probably make reference to the tensions in our country. But I want to start differently, with a story. Dr. Bradburn can vouch that this is true. Washington and John Marshall, who later became Chief Justice, were once riding on horseback to visit some friends. And on the way, Marshall ripped his pants. But he had no choice but to keep going on. The rip must have been in a strategic area, if you know what I mean. Because when they arrived, the only thing that Marshall could think of doing was to hold a handkerchief in front of him like a bullfighter. I have to demonstrate this. It was like this. Well, on seeing this, Washington laughed so hard that it is said that it took a time for him to recover. Now today, we call upon that joyous, happy Washington, because this is a very joyous, happy day. We are here to celebrate you that were just sworn in. We're here to recognize what you have overcome, what you have achieved, and to recognize the responsibilities that are still in front of you. I remember how happy I was when I became an American citizen. I tell you, it felt so great. It was September 17th, 1983. I was all dressed up just like today, with the blue blazer, white shirt, and red tie, and I raised my right hand, stood straight, and I proudly
And that's the year I was born.
And after that, I celebrated.
I was like, what,
I
3 months old or
celebrated at
something?
lunchtime. I
2 months
celebrated
old.
at dinner time. I celebrated all night, and I had the American flag draped around my shoulders. I couldn't believe it. I kept saying to myself, Arnold, you have a new home. And I did. And so do you. And so do you. I have no doubt that similar lunches and dinners and parties will take place here today, because there's so much to celebrate. You have endured the stress of filling out the forms and the paperwork. You've waited and you've worried. You've wondered, what is taking so long? Right? Did the paperwork get lost? Did it get lost in the mail? Did it go through? What is happening here? I know those feelings. I know the relief that you must feel today. Some of you have escaped from very harsh circumstances in your previous life. I've always loved what Harriet Tubman said about escaping from slavery into freedom. She said, when I found that I had crossed that line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold through trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. Today, at least for a few hours, I hope that you feel a glory over everything. I hope that you feel that glory over everything. Now, I know that each of you has your own reason for wanting to be an American citizen. Some of you came to America to escape fear of persecution and political oppression. That gnawing fear that tells you not to look at the soldier in the eye. Others of you came to America because of economic desperation in your home country. That gnawing in your stomach that comes from unrelenting poverty or famine. Or maybe what drew you here was the longing to be reunited with your family. That gnawing.
All right, so we're listening in there to this naturalization ceremony happening at George Washington's Mount Vernon. You're hearing from Arnold Schwarzenegger, former California governor. However, we did want to go away for a break because on the other side, we do want to take you out to some parades. Here's a live look right now out of Tampa, Florida. We're going to head over there in just a matter of moments. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Live Now from Fox.
All right. Well, let's see here. What do we got, y'all? Um. Shoot. I guess we'll be right back. We'll go on a break ourselves.
roadblocks. New laws require gun owners to lock up their firearms at home or face prosecution. But as our justice correspondent Scott McFarland learned in Michigan, implementing the law has come with its own set of challenges.
Everybody can read one.
Tiara Taylor, a mother of 6, was in the bathroom of her Detroit home when she heard the bang. Her 3-year-old had shot himself.
I can still, when I close my eyes, see the blood running down his face. It's something that haunts me.
Thankfully, it was just a graze to the head.
I am very remorseful for what happened with my baby, and that's something that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life.
At the hospital, Taylor says she was shocked when police arrested her.
What was going through your mind when they cuffed you?
The only thing that was bothering me so bad is the fact that my son don't know what's going on. He's hurt, and now he's by himself.
Right.
In April 2023, amid a wave of mass shootings,
police could have just handcuffed her and went with her instead.
Guns be locked and disarmed if a child is nearby. 26 states nationwide now have similar laws on the books. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, we met with Eunice Benavidez earlier this year, and she said she believes this law will save lives.
Is he a good big brother?
Yeah, he was the best.
Her brother, Alejandro, died at a sleepover 2 decades ago.
How was he struck?
He was shot point blank on his face.
His friend accidentally fired a gun left on a table.
It's something that you don't just process it once. It was hard to lose my big brother. I had plans, to have him around, have him walk me down the aisle.
But even with the new law in effect, the debate rages on. Pete Lucido is the Republican prosecutor in Macomb County, Michigan.
You can put as many laws as you want in the books, but human nature, ignorance, it always takes control.
Lucido's brought 5 safe storage laws as of early this year, but says they're anguishing to him.
You have some concern about breaking up the family.
Yes, it was a mistake. Yes, it was a bad mistake. It could have been a fatal mistake. But if we take away that family support unit, are we making a bigger mistake?
CBS News found nearly all of the 36 cases charged in the past year came from less than a dozen counties, most with Democratic prosecutors. Opponents of safe storage laws argued they restrict Second Amendment rights, are unnecessary, and ineffective. On her birthday this February, Tiara was sentenced to probation, the charge knocked down to a misdemeanor, as judges grapple with how to punish people in this new type of case.
To get my babies back and not have to do any jail time, that was definitely a relief.
Gun safety groups say guns aren't safely stored unless they're kept unloaded, locked, and separate from their ammunition. Last week, the U.S. House introduced legislation to expand safe storage requirements nationwide, but gun control legislation has stalled in Congress since 2022, Vlad.
All right, Scott, thank you very much.
Interesting. Got our parade over here in Tampa, Florida. Well, I see, I mean, so far, typical, a lot of moms, kids, some fathers, grandparents. Oh, man. All right, we'll be right back.
Beautiful underwater shot there. Our next guest is one of the world's leading underwater explorers. For more than 50 years, James Delgado has been searching for shipwrecks, investigating more than 100 all over the world. In 2019, his discovery of the Clotilda in Alabama, the last known slave ship to arrive in the United States, made headlines worldwide. He later spoke with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes about finding the wreckage.
Sonar's on, zero pressure, good to drop.
So we're almost over now.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're coming right up on it.
So that's the bow right there.
That's it right there?
Right on
Yes.
the bow, yep.
Oh, you can see it like that?
Yeah.
Wow, you can see it totally clearly. I mean, that's the ship.
In terms of where people could actually fit 5 feet by about 20 feet.
Wait a minute, it was only 5 feet high? So people could barely stand up in this hole.
Yes.
I'll never forget that 60 Minutes segment. His details for the search of shipwrecks in his new book. It's called The Great Museum of the Sea. And James is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, you know, it's funny. I first got really interested in shipwrecks when that 1980 movie, Raise the Titanic, came out. Do you remember that film? It wasn't that good. But when you're 11 or 12, you are fascinated by the notion of finding shipwrecks. How did it begin for you?
Growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of shipwrecks around San Francisco, but what got me was the fact that a lot of them that came during the gold rush in 1849 got pulled up.
The dude
from the
looks like he
waterfront,
owns the ship,
turned into
or
buildings,
he's a
and then
captain.
were buried. So downtown, those high-rises cover a graveyard of ships, and they dug one up in 1978, and this young archaeologist went, okay, my life's just changed.
Wow. So what kind of research do you need to do to even, because we sort of often know where the vicinity of where ships go down, but there's got to be a whole lot more to actually pinpointing the exact location. How does that work?
It takes a team, and that team includes oceanographers, people that understand currents. We're also looking at old records and charts. You're also trying to understand the forensics of it. Like, how fast could this ship go? If it's sailing, does it go here or there? And then, what does it take for a ship to sink? Does it go this way or that way? And then, what's going to be left on the bottom? I mean, we've got some great images that people think of as shipwrecks, but there are times what we see as a pile of rocks and a few worm-eaten timbers and maybe an anchor. And then you have to go, all right, what exactly am I looking at here?
Well, James, this book is so well written. You speak with such poetic terms about what you find under the sea. You call the sea the largest museum on Earth, that every shipwreck has a story to tell. Yet, not everyone agrees with how that story is told, given the tragedy that these wrecks often hold.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
I think the most important thing for people to remember about shipwrecks is that it's okay for them to have different meanings. You don't all have to agree. Some people like them because they inspire you with stories of bravery. Others are tragic and sad. For some, they're the graves of family. But for others, they're a great opportunity to dive and to explore. What I want to say in the book and beyond is that's all okay. It's good to have these various interests as long as we understand that everybody has their own right to their own opinion about it. And as long as you're not hurting that wreck or what other people can do with it, all's fair.
So much of shipwrecks remains in our lore. There's nostalgia surrounding it, certainly with the Titanic. You've been to the bottom of the sea to look. You even brought a prop for us to look at. But you think about that staying power.
Yeah.
What was it for you when you actually were right there?
Nothing quite prepares you for seeing Titanic. I mean, it's such a well-known ship. We've heard about it, whether you sang the songs or even before Jim did the movie. There it was. But when you have fallen for 2.5 hours in a submersible and the pressure increases so that a regular styrofoam coffee cup gets squeezed down like this when it's strapped to the outside, you're thinking about all of that, and then suddenly it goes away because there it is, looming out of the darkness. I mean, we landed in the Russian submersible Mirtu, approached it, and you could see it in the sonar, but then there it was, this massive hull rising twice as high as the ceiling here, still painted, but streaked with rust and rusticles that are orange and yellow and red. And then a porthole that swung open and another closed. And I have to say, one of the spookiest moments, because Titanic is a ship of the dead, is when I first looked through the porthole, 2.5 miles down, the lights illuminated, and I could see a face looking back at me in the porthole.
No.
It was my own reflection.
Oh, wow.
He's like, you
Wow.
go, okay.
Sure.
That's the power of Titanic. But what's more powerful, perhaps, is not the scare. It's the realization that this ship sitting on the bottom, racked and ruined and deteriorating, still is the stage upon which some of the most powerful drama played out that we all know about with a shipwreck. And you're there.
And you're there in so many other great shipwrecks that you chronicle in this book. James Delgado, really great to have you. The book is fascinating. It's called The Great Museum of the Sea. It's available now wherever you get your books.
Ahead, our series, The Dish, we talk with celebrity chef Eric Achapong about his goal to share West African food and flavors with everyone. We'll be right back.
Back to the parade.
bring you some breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta put it on there?
For who? Who you with?
For mobile, Safety Harbor Mobile.
Sure. Yeah, I'll show you. Very nice.
Thank you.
Wow, that looks good. Oh man, all right, eat. Oh, I'm hungry now. Let me go cook some breakfast. Get some eggs going.
Author. He told me about his goal of sharing West African food with the world. Inside the restaurant Almina in Washington, D.C., a quest to redefine legacy. A mission filled with complex flavors and colorful plates of new yet familiar tastes. All guided by Chef Eric Ajapong's West African heritage.
Africa being the second biggest continent in the world, yet the food is so unknown, it's like a travesty, right? Like, how do we celebrate those dishes? How do we tell those stories? It's woven throughout the entire sort of lexicon of culinary history throughout the world. We can't have gumbo without West African food. We can't have shrimp and grits without West African food. These are important stories to tell.
And Ajapong's deep desire to share those stories lies in the Ghanaian philosophy of Sankofa, which he calls his life's driving force. When you talk about Sankofa, it's looking back at your own life, but also your ancestors.
Massive. Yeah, absolutely. So to move forward, you have to look back and sort of gain inspiration, truly understand who you are, where you come from, the people before me, my ancestors, you know, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts and uncles that have passed away.
Ajapong was born in New York, but spent much of his early childhood with his grandparents in Ghana.
I remember vaguely some experiences more than others, but I think internally there's always that sort of like vibration of just like knowing that that was home to me.
And even now when you go back.
Even now when I go back, exactly.
Yeah. That time helped shape his culinary approach, as did learning to cook here.
The fish stew, it takes time.
In his mom's New York City kitchen, which he still considers his most esteemed. Ajapong then worked his way up in Michelin star restaurants in his 20s.
30 seconds left.
Before finishing as a finalist on Top Chef in 2018.
Eric?
What we have today is a curry corn bisque.
Now Ajapong shares his favorite recipes in his new cookbook, Ghana to the World, a nod to his main goal, building a table between the two continents he cherishes most. You've been working on this book for 4 years. What did you want to make sure you got right?
I really wanted to make sure that we honored the traditional dishes, things that were sort of cooked in the same fashion that my grandparents would make or my mom or dad would make and then I would make now for my child. And then you'll have some of my recipes that are more newer takes or sort of inspirations with taking ingredients and using my experiences working with, you know, different restaurants around the world, different chefs that I've been inspired by.
From coconut curry chickpeas to eggs Benedict with scallops and Ghanaian chicken kebabs, Ajapong combines vivid recipes with personal stories. What story do you have here?
Well, number one, I think jollof rice right here.
Now, you've said before your mom makes the best.
That is a staple. That's a fact. That is 100%.
Not opinion.
No, not an opinion. 100% fact.
I love the sauce, the freshness of the tomato mixed with the rice too. After enjoying a few more dishes, we're breaking bread.
Breaking bread, yeah, exactly.
The chef invited me into the kitchen to make one together. his famous roasted banana grits with shrimp.
I've been in a lot of kitchens. I've never seen someone do something like this. What exactly are you doing?
So we have some coals here that we're getting really hot, and then we're gonna transfer these coals here in our grill and then get that going for our shrimp. So we'll add in the grits here.
How much butter is too much butter?
Oh, is that like the philosophical question? The more the merrier, honestly.
Dump it all in,
Just
Chef.
dump it all in there, why
in.
not?
There we go. Mix that real good.
We're gonna go ahead and start to plate up.
That looks pretty.
That all-day seasoning, the secret stuff.
Oh. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Mmm.
That's delicious.
It was not a graceful bite, but it tastes so good. Between the restaurant opening and your book coming out, what's the one thing that you want people to take away?
I really want to be able to sort of put Ghana on the map as much as I can, you know? I feel a calling to really share these stories as much as I can.
So the food, truly spectacular.
Yeah, he's
really,
good.
really well done.
He's
and
really good.
What was fun about going to his mom's house in the Bronx was that she talked about how, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds like a really nice experience to go there and have that food. That'd be fun. Back to the parade, I guess.
Time, we are devastated to learn that Joey Chestnut has chosen to represent a rival brand, adding, for nearly 2 decades, we have worked under the same basic hot dog exclusivity provisions. But all of that now appears to be water under the bridge, as the two sides said they've reached an agreement.
This man represents all that is eternal.
And the Michael Jordan of competitive eating is back to reclaim his throne.
Do you feel like you've got, are you back with a bit of a chip on your shoulder this year after last year?
It's no, I don't hold any grudges.
Okay.
I'm here. Yeah, like I said, I love this. I love 4th of July. I love the audience. I love dominating my competitors. If somebody else won last year, whoever won last year, he's not going to be the champion for much longer.
Chestnut has won the competition 16 times and holds the world hot dog eating record. 76 Nathan's famous hot dogs in just 10 minutes back in 2021.
Man, be good at whatever you are good at.
For reigning champ Pat Bertoletti. He too admits it'll be good to be back on the stage with a legend.
It's not a real contest if he's not here.
It's kind of hard to watch. You know, sometimes they dunk those hot dog buns in water to get them down. Anyway, this is why they do it. The prize money, typically $40,000 split among the top 5 contestants. The winner usually getting 10 grand. Well, that's going to do it for this hour.
Yeah, it's not
News
much.
Now, but your news continues.
100 grand would be a good, but not 10. 10 grand ain't much.
Right now on Morning News Now, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. This morning, Republicans celebrating a major win after the multi-trillion-dollar domestic policy package narrowly passed the House, capping off days of tense negotiations. And a record-breaking 8-hour, 44-minute-long speech by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Now, President Trump is set to sign the bill into law to meet.
Yeah, we know. Okay, we heard about all that yesterday. Yeah, we know. Okay, everybody knows.
At that point.
I love that. Within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. All right. My talk on the table is a trip down nostalgia lane prompted by a young TikToker who had some questions about life in the 90s, and his questions went viral. Watch.
How were y'all able to get updates on news and pop culture as quick as we were? How long did you technically have to wait before you were able to check out that new song? Did you have to wait till it was played on the radio, or did you have to wait until you went and bought the album, bought the CD? Did y'all have CDs in the 90s, or did they come in early 2000s?
My brother, let me school you about the 90s. BuzzFeed came up with a list of how life was different in the 90s, and here are some of my favorites. Cell phones, they were rare. There was no texting. We had phones like that Nokia phone or that similar vibe.
I had that model.
Families, we all shared a landline at home.
Yeah.
One line, long talks on the telephone.
Right, call waiting was like a luxury.
Waiting. If you were lucky, you had an extra line if you were rich. But most people only had one line.
But it was great because you could eavesdrop.
Yeah.
Different calls for people.
And
party
like,
line.
Mom, I'm on the phone, Mom. I'm on the phone. People are so afraid about like their information being out there. Hello, the white pages, everybody's name,
Now, this is out of Dallas, Texas. Let's listen in.
Hold on, go back.
For you here, I did want to share our poll again. How are you celebrating the 4th of July holiday? If you'd like to still weigh in, you can scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner.
Cooking out, fireworks
screen.
event, pool,
A lot of
beach,
you have
traveling.
weighed in already.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing so.
That's what I want. What are we talking about over here?
For the Donald Trump agenda.
The motion is adopted.
The House passing his multi-trillion-dollar sprawling spending bill designed to fund a wide range of campaign promises, including extending tax cuts passed in his first administration, new military spending, and money to fund a mass deportation plan, paying for it in part with steep cuts to food aid benefits, clean energy funding, and Medicaid. President Trump celebrating the win before flying to a victory rally in
What does the
Iowa.
cuts mean for food? That's kind of affects me.
The bill passed largely on party lines, with only 2 Republicans voting against it. One of those, Pennsylvania Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, who dodged NBC News' questions.
Why did you vote no?
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Why did you vote no?
House conservatives balked at the changes made in the Senate, holding back their votes for hours, before they finally relented without a single thing in the bill changing. House Speaker Mike Johnson.
You think they caved? No, I don't think they caved. Look, I think every member made a thoughtful and informed decision.
President Trump working the phones until the early morning hours. The holdouts say they got what they wanted.
Are you concerned that in the future, though, people won't believe that you guys are going to be a no on big issues like
I think
this?
they know we better be ready they better be ready to deal.
Democrats did everything they could to delay final passage. Their leader, Hakeem Jeffries, setting a record by holding the floor for more than 8 hours, attacking the bill's overhaul of social safety net programs like Medicaid and SNAP, which could lead to millions of Americans losing access to coverage.
We were a hell no last week, a hell no this week, a hell no yesterday, a hell no today.
But Republicans argue Medicaid is in need of reform, and the bill is filled with the president's priorities, like eliminating taxes on tips and overtime. Republicans taking a victory lap following the vote.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now.
all smiles as one of the signature.
All right, so now you gotta. All right, let me make sure you guys can hear me. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. So now new age limits. This doesn't apply to me, but people 55 through 64 without children and parents 14 and with children 14 and older. So if you don't have anyone under 14, any children under 14, must now work at least 20 hours per week or participate in training programs. Before this only applied to people up to age 54. I mean, it sounds like it's not much change. It's not that different.
Known for. And the president, as you said, is really wanting to praise this. He has a signing ceremony later today at the White House. But as you said, he's been talking about it a lot. Here's him last night.
I think when you go over the bill, it was very easy to get him to a yes. You know, we went over that bill, and point after point, biggest tax cut in history, great for security, great on the southern border, immigration is covered. We covered just about everything. Again, it's the biggest bill ever signed of its kind.
Now, the issue here will be sort of what would be the political fallout of this. We know that the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has said that this bill is going to lead to nearly 12 million people losing their health care coverage. That same office also said that it's going to add trillions, about $3 trillion to the national debt. Democrats say that they are ready to use this to campaign against Republicans in the midterms. That being said, Republicans feel like they are on strong ground. There's a number of really campaign promises that are being fulfilled in this bill, including no taxes on tips and overtime pay, as well as also cuts to electric vehicles and clean energy in order to fund things like more border security. So it's definitely going to be a political football as well, Steve.
Yeah, and we've heard many Republicans dismiss the Congressional Budget Office estimates there as well, Yamiche. And while we have you, I wanted to ask about the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The judge in this case now directing both sides to stop publicly commenting about the case. Abrego Garcia is the man who was mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador. His defense attorneys argue the government was depriving him of a right to a fair trial. What's the latest on this?
Yeah, this is really interesting because, of course, the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia has captured national attention. As you said, he was the Maryland man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. He was eventually brought back to the United States, but then he was indicted, and now he's facing charges, including human trafficking and other things that the Trump administration is saying that he was doing. And now lawyers for Kilmar Abrego Garcia are essentially saying that the government, the Trump administration, is trying to convict him in the court of public opinion, and that as a result, he wants both sides, especially the government, to stop talking about this case. The judge has sided with the lawyers for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. But the interesting thing is going to be what the scope of this is going to be, because from my reading, the lawyers for Kilmar Abrego Garcia were asking for the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security to stop talking about him. But there's also, of course, a number of political figures that have been talking about him. The president has been talking about him. The president of El Salvador has been lashing out at him and criticizing him and accusing him of breaking all sorts of laws. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this judge's order actually has an impact on the political discourse around this case, Steve.
Yeah, more to come there. And Yamiche, the first detainees have now arrived at that new immigration detention center in Florida that's being called the Alligator Alcatraz. Some lawmakers say they've been denied access to that facility. What more do we know about that?
That's right. A group of Democratic lawmakers were trying to get into this facility that is known as Alligator Alcatraz. It is this facility that is, of course, right in the middle of the Everglades. It's kind of a tent city on an airstrip. And there are a lot of human rights concerns, and Democrats are worried that the conditions are inhumane. There's also real concern about the environmental impacts because this is, again, in the middle of the Everglades. But those lawmakers were denied entry by a number of law enforcement officials. The officials officials that were denying them entry said that it had to do with safety concerns. Now, at some point, those lawmakers may be allowed back in the facility. We know that the president, as well as a number of reporters and the governor of Florida, as well as the Secretary of Homeland Security, that they had a sort of tour of this facility, and they were talking about things like, look at the fact that there is AC in these tents, but they were also saying that if people try to escape, that they're essentially going to be chased by alligators. So there's a lot of concern about the conditions now that you have migrants actually arriving there. There's about 3,000 to 5,000 beds to house migrants there. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not these lawmakers at some point gain entry, because as I said, they are very concerned about the conditions there, Steve.
Yeah, definitely more to follow for that one, Yamiche. We know you'll be on it. Thank you so much. Well, the Supreme Court has agreed to review state laws that ban transgender athletes from competing in girls' and women's high school and college sports. The cases come from West Virginia and Idaho and involve 2 transgender students who challenged state bans. The students won injunctions that allow them to continue to compete in sports, but more than half the 50 states now have transgender sports bans in place, but legal challenges have not been decisively resolved. Both cases concern whether such laws violate the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which of course requires that the law apply equally to everyone. Oral arguments for that will likely take place later this year, with a ruling expected by June of 2026. We're learning more details this morning about the high-profile arrest of Mexican boxer Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Federal immigration agents detained him Wednesday outside of his Los Angeles home. As NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky explains, the renowned boxer reportedly had a, quote, active arrest warrant in Mexico.
From a boxing match watched by millions just days ago to this black and white photo released by ICE, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is in federal custody, facing multiple accusations of crimes in Mexico. The Department of Homeland Security confirming ICE agents arrested the 39-year-old Wednesday at his LA County home. DHS alleging the former middleweight world champion is involved in organized crime and trafficking firearms, ammunition, and explosives. Chavez's attorney calling the allegations outrageous. Prior to his Saturday fight versus Jake Paul, the LA resident spoke out on the ongoing ICE operations, telling the LA Times, "It even scared me, to tell you the truth. It is very ugly," adding, "I don't understand the situation. Why so much violence?"
Now that Chavez Jr. is in federal custody, what legal recourse does he have?
It's very difficult. He's subject to expedite removal because he has not been here for 2 years, but he's also married to a United States citizen.
DHS saying that citizen is also accused of having connections to the Sinaloa cartel through a prior relationship with a now dead son of the cartel leader, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The son of a boxing champion, Chavez Jr. was born in the Mexican state of Sinaloa, rising through the ranks before making his pro debut in 2002.
The Department of Homeland Security tells NBC News Chavez Jr. is being processed for expedited removal out of the United States. Meanwhile, Americans across the country will be celebrating the 4th of July today, but for many travelers, getting to those celebrations has not been easy, and that's thanks to several days of storms, including another round of severe weather overnight that delayed flights and caused damage in parts of the Northeast. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us now from the Brooklyn Bridge, where he's also got a prime viewing spot for tonight's big fireworks show. Sam, good morning.
Stephen, good morning. Look, it has been a long road, both literally and metaphorically, for so many of those folks trying to get to their destinations to take in the fireworks shows. Violent storm, Stephen, again last night, prompting ground stops and delays at all of the major New York City airports. It has been a grind all week, but we are finally here with the fireworks shows all over the country, especially punctuated by the iconic Brooklyn Bridge. That sky is going to be lit up in just a matter of hours. But, Stephen, this also comes right now as federal agencies are saying they're not tracking any specific threats, but their awareness is very high heading into the holiday.
Overnight, another dose of nasty weather pelting an already wet and weary East Coast. And now turning deadly, according to New Jersey's governor. The state pounded by heavy storms, bringing hail, rain, and powerful winds, downing trees and power lines. The city of Plainfield even declaring a state of emergency overnight, urging residents to stay inside. just one of the storms striking the country yesterday. In the southwest, central Texas, seeing heavy rains and flooding. Waters rising on the East Coast, too. The inclement weather briefly freezing all flights at Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK airports. Americans getting creative with their travel. We met Tom and Lucas Meyer, who left Cleveland by plane, trying to get to Boston in order to drive to Maine.
And you had no intentions of going to Boston in the first place?
No intentions of going to Boston. We were hoping for a regular connecting flight to Portland this morning.
So your connecting flight canceled?
Absolutely canceled.
With nearly 62 million driving to their holiday destinations, many just trying to maintain that holiday spirit.
Got the kids, grandkids, 2 carloads. We're about to have a good time, man.
And the millions of those twisting and turning just to try to get to their destinations, keeping an eye also on security. In a joint threat assessment, federal authorities warning 4th of July events in New York and elsewhere remain, quote, attractive targets for those motivated by foreign terrorist organizations. But authorities added they're not tracking any specific or credible plots. And New York will host its iconic fireworks display tonight, drawing hundreds of thousands. With better weather finally coming to the East Coast, Americans looking forward to a calmer holiday weekend.
So, Stephen, as for that threat assessment that we just mentioned, the focus right now is on potential car rammings or copycat type of attacks, similar to what we saw in New Orleans on New Year's Day. That said, the New York Police Department is going to have a highly saturated presence here tonight, assisted by the FBI as well. As far as the show is concerned, fireworks over the bridge here, 80,000 shells tonight. That is going to be the biggest they have ever had in New York. It was 60,000 last night. This may be, as you mentioned, the prime spot to watch it all go down. Stephen, let me send it back to you.
Very nice. Can't beat it. Sam Brock, thanks so much. And let's stick with your holiday weather forecast. Meteorologist Angie Lassman has more on those important fireworks forecasts for us.
Hey there, Stephen. Happy 4th of July. A lot of outdoor plans riding on this weather forecast. So here's what we've got going on. Improved conditions across parts of the Northeast. I'll show you that here in a moment. We've got some unsettled weather that's going to kind of hang around throughout the weekend across parts of the Southeast. We're waking up this morning to a little bit of rain across the South and then out west across parts of the Northern Rockies. And the Northern Plains, we do have some additional rain. So let's start with the Northeast over the next couple of days. Honestly, a great forecast. Plenty of sunshine, summer-like temperatures. We've got those high 80s to mid 80s from Friday to Sunday. And we're going to see really comfortable conditions with some humidity on the low end for at least the start of the holiday weekend, but increasing as the weekend goes on. We move to the Midwest where we've got a mixed bag in some spots. Chicago, you're going to deal with some rain today. We've got temperatures well into the 90s by tomorrow, and then some rain back in the forecast for Sunday. Detroit seeing a little bit of that shower activity for today, and then drying out and warming up by the time the weekend ends. We'll see a couple rounds of those kinds of showers and thunderstorms across that region. And unfortunately, Miami really going to see periods of rain throughout the weekend. We've got this area that we're watching. It's fairly disorganized off the coast, and that's just going to leave us with some of those downpours throughout the weekend. Atlanta looks pretty good. We're into those low to mid 90s with lots of sunshine throughout the holiday weekend. And out west, we're seeing great conditions as well. It'll be mild near the coast, a little hotter, of course, for the interior areas, but plenty of sunshine and summer-like temperatures across that region. If you are planning to maybe head to the Macy's 4th of July fireworks, 8 p.m. tonight, we've got great conditions, low humidity, temperatures in the upper 70s. A bigger picture look at the firework forecast across the country looks really great for most. Of course, the Midwest, the Northeast, parts of the Mid-Atlantic, great conditions, clear skies. We do have to keep an eye on some of those thunderstorms across parts of the Northern Plains, and of course the rain that stays with us for parts of the Southeast, specifically Florida. But out west, we're looking at mostly clear conditions and temperatures fairly mild. Muggy, though, across parts of the South. Stephen, back to you.
All right, we've been warned. Angie, thanks. Well, this morning, we're remembering Michael Madsen, an actor who starred in hundreds of movies and TV shows, but he was best known for his roles in cult classics that earned him legions of devoted fans. Here's NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch with more on his legacy.
When Michael Madsen showed up on screen, you knew things were likely not going to end well. In a career spanning more than 40 years, this 1992 scene may have been his single most famous.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
He played Mr. Blonde in Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, cementing a reputation for playing tough guys, which he discussed on the Today Show in 1993.
I think I got it from my father, maybe, or maybe because I grew up in Chicago, or maybe my voice, my face. I really didn't mind because I worked a lot and I always was able to stay busy. But after a while, you know, you want to change a little bit. You want to try something different. I pawned that years ago.
Still, he'd team up repeatedly with Tarantino, from the Kill Bill franchise to The Hateful Eight and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
What were you doing last night?
The familiar face also had roles in mob movie Donnie Brasco.
Well, James Bond. Just in time for the fireworks.
James Bond's explosive adventure Die Another Day, and arguably out of character, he even had a part in feel-good film Free Willy.
What the heck are you doing with my truck?
The Chicago native's manager says he died from cardiac arrest. His sister, actor Virginia Madsen, telling Variety he was a poet disguised as an outlaw. I miss my big brother. Michael Madsen was 67 years old. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News.
Jesse, thanks, and much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, an underground trend now gone mainstream. How old school bunkers with modern day upgrades have become a major selling point for homes. But up first, after the break, disappointment from President Trump after a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin about ending the war in Ukraine. The latest on those ceasefire talks coming up next. Stick around.
As millions travel for July 4th, and a juror in the Sean Diddy Combs trial speaks out. First tonight, House Republicans passing that major spending bill.
Vote yes on the bill.
By the slimmest of votes. President Trump speaking late today, saying the bill gives him more power now than in his first term. The bill including cuts to Medicaid, which could cause an estimated 11.8 million Americans to lose their health care. Even some Republicans concerned about the price tag, adding trillions to the national debt. In a historic speech, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries blasting the measure for more than 8 hours on the House floor. Mary Bruce standing by at the White House. Severe storms slamming the Northeast as we come on, with millions hitting the roads and the skies during a record holiday travel crush. Also developing tonight, we're tracking a tropical system threatening the Southeast that could wash out holiday plans. Our weather team timing it all out. A deadly explosion levels a home in Southern California. Fireworks suspected, one person killed, as authorities search for the missing from that massive blast at a fireworks warehouse in Northern California. For the first time tonight, a juror in the Sean Diddy Combs trial speaks out. What they say led to the verdict and the impact of Combs' celebrity. Aaron Katersky with new reporting. Tonight,
and ask questions later.
a high-stakes call between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. What we're learning as Russia's war on Ukraine rages. Dramatic new video, the daring rescue on Mount Washington after a hiker fell 60 feet. A soccer superstar killed in a fiery Lamborghini crash. And remembering two acting legends, one who starred in some of Hollywood's most memorable films, the other you'll remember from Star Wars. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. I'm Wade Johnson in for David. We begin tonight with a defining moment for President Trump, the House delivering the first major legislative victory of his second term, passing his mega spending bill, the core of his domestic agenda. Late today, President Trump celebrating on his way to an event in Iowa after pressuring holdouts within his own party. He's now trying to sell the bill to the American people. House Speaker Mike Johnson swinging the gavel once the votes were counted. He worked around the clock to make this victory happen. Only 2 Republicans voting against the bill. The package includes sweeping tax cuts and cuts to Medicaid, which could cause an estimated 11.8 million Americans to lose their health care. It's expected to add $3.4 trillion to the national debt over 10 years. The bill with no Democratic support, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries taking to the floor for what's known as the Magic Minute. He ended up speaking for more than 8.5 hours, breaking a modern-day record.
If Iran...
Are you from Iran?
No, I'm not from Iran. I'm from the UK. But if the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
Have you had any conversations?
Turned out to be unbelievable. But, you know, our incredible flyers and I call them the shots, these guys are unbelievable. Think, from 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much smaller than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, deeper, blowing up.
Overnight, the biggest Russian aerial attack on Ukraine in the last 3 years. Drones buzzing over Kyiv, explosions rocking the capital for hours. The Ukrainian Air Force says Russia fired 550 missiles and drones overnight. Ukrainian President Zelensky said this morning the capital was hit the hardest. All of this is clear evidence, Zelensky posted, that without truly large-scale pressure, Russia will not change its dumb, destructive behavior. But so far, pressure from President Trump isn't working. The American president declared he'd end the war as soon as he took office. He's been trying his own brand of diplomacy, speaking directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin, most recently for nearly an hour yesterday, but expressing frustration.
I didn't make any progress with him today at all.
Later saying he doesn't think Putin is ready to end the war.
I don't think he's there, and I'm very disappointed. Well, it's not, I'm just saying, I don't think he's looking to stop.
The Kremlin said Putin told Trump that he will not back down from its aims, largely addressing the root causes, a phrase Moscow uses for its argument justifying the invasion of Ukraine to prevent NATO expansion. But the phone call comes as Russia is expanding its summer offensive, and the U.S. is limiting its critical support for Ukraine. Earlier this week, the White House announcing it's reviewing weapons deliveries to allies.
Trump was like, we need to find an American buyer, and then BlackRock came.
We can't give weapons to everybody all around the world.
According to 4 defense officials and congressional sources, the weapons being delayed include thousands of high-explosive munitions, precision-guided missiles, grenade launchers, and Patriot interceptors used to defend against Russian missiles.
Of course, we count on continuation of American support on missiles for Patriot systems. This is crucial.
Patriot systems are so important to the Ukrainians. Now, Stephen, we have new exclusive reporting from our colleagues in D.C. The decision to halt weapons was a unilateral decision by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, according to 3 congressional aides and a former U.S. official. An analysis by senior military officers found that the aid package would not jeopardize the American military's own ammunition supplies, according to 3 U.S. officials. And, Stephen, the move really blindsided not only the State Department, members of Congress, but also officials in Kyiv and European allies over here. Stephen?
More developments every day. Molly, thank you so much. All right, now to President Trump's plan to open America's national forest for business to industries, including oil and gas. His administration hopes to repeal the protections that covered those lands, and that could allow roads to be built and make way for mining and drilling. The Trump administration claims the plan will reduce the risk of wildfires in the area, but several environmental groups claim the risk for fires will actually increase by a lot. NBC News meteorologist Chase Kane explains what's at stake.
When national forests have roads through them, it makes them up to 4 times more likely to catch fire. At least 3 different studies found similar results, most recently from the Wilderness Society, analyzing more than 30 years of data. But the Trump administration wants to build roads through largely untouched forests, claiming it would prevent fires, the opposite of what research shows. President Clinton first protected roughly 58 million acres largely untouched. Now, the USDA wants to build new or wider roads to allow mining, drilling, and logging. The Secretary of Agriculture called the roadless rule protections absurd and overly restrictive. And we're talking about beautiful national forests like the Tongass in Alaska, the Shenandoah in Virginia, stretching from New England to the Smoky Mountains and the Pacific Coast. In California, that includes 4.5 million acres, some with centuries-old trees, catching the attention of state leaders.
It's cause for not only concern, but alarm. And historically, those roadless areas of our national forest have been those areas that are so sensitive we need to protect them, either because they have cultural importance to tribes or they're very environmentally sensitive in their watersheds to protect our water. And these are lands that people love.
However, the Trump administration's plan has support from 3 Republican governors and at least 14 Republicans in Congress, all calling the protections unnecessary and outdated. Still, environmental advocate Pamela Wellner remembers 2004 when President George W. Bush made a similar effort to roll back the roadless rule. She wrote about it in the San Francisco Chronicle, highlighting the bipartisan support to protect our national forests.
What made the difference with that?
Made the difference is people speaking out and saying, no roads in our national forests. If you love nature, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It is forming a common ground. We need to write our congressmen and tell them that.
Exactly what happens next is still a little unclear because there are already environmental groups like Earth Justice who are saying they're going to file suit to stop this. 2 states, Colorado and here in Idaho, already have their own state-specific laws about roadless forests, so those could supersede any changes at the federal level. And you can't rule out a state like California trying to pass their own legislation to protect the nearly 4.5 million acres of roadless forest in the Golden State. In Sun Valley, Idaho, I'm meteorologist Chase Kane.
Also, we have up here on my Twitter or down on the screen if you can see it. We have Lay's Real Talk right here. She just put President Trump announced that a trade agreement with China has been signed and claimed the deal would begin to open up China. There's a strange part. We haven't heard any details except that it is supposedly addressing rare earth disputes. On the Chinese side, it's a total radio silence. What kind of deal did the U.S. sign with China, and why are the details so tightly guarded? The answer lies in the CCP's power transition. Xi Jinping wasn't involved in the deal, and revealing the terms would expose the biggest secret. So on her video, she talks about that. If you want to go hit that up. If you're interested. What we got over here? What's going on?
And we shouldn't be paying a rate like that. In other words, when we pay a rate, I'll tell you, each point is the equivalent of $300 billion. So if we had it down 3 points, because I think we should be at 1, you have Switzerland is at 0.25. In other words, 25% of 1%. And they're the number 1 right now. But we should be the number 1. And soon you're going to have, I think, you're going to have where the people will pay will pay like we had a few years ago, where you put up money, you loan money, and I mean, you actually, instead of paying, you get paid. I love that. I don't know if it's any good, but I love it, where you put up money and you get paid. But we should be in a category, so we should be at the top of the list, not toward the bottom of the list. But we have a man who's not a smart man, and he probably has Trump derangement syndrome. And he's just not a smart person. What he's doing, though, he's hurting us for years to come. Because if we borrow money at 2 points higher than we should be paying, that's $600 billion. Wouldn't you say those numbers are about right, Scott? So it's 2 points would be about 600, actually more than that, but about $600 billion, all because the guy doesn't want to lower the rates. He's doing the service, a very disservice. And then he goes up, talks about, I'd like to see costs come down. You know, he gets up and he does his little thing for 5 minutes, then he goes out and he goes back to the beach. He goes, I'd like to see costs come down. Well, he could lower the interest cost by $900 billion a year. All he has to do is lower rates. And everybody's saying, I was watching some of the business shows today, and they're saying, you know, Trump's right. He should really be cutting. The country's doing well. We have no
Just wildfire so far this year. More than 200 people have evacuated their homes as the fire is getting dangerously close to about 50 different structures. Officials say the fire is about 10% contained now, but they're especially worried because it's burning in a rural area with a lot of dry grass. The cause for that fire is still under investigation. Now to California, where 7 people are still unaccounted for after that massive explosion at a fireworks facility earlier this week. Authorities are trying to contain that fire as well as they still look into the cause. It's a stark reminder today of just how dangerous fireworks can be. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal joins us now from California with the latest on this one. Camila, good morning.
Hey, Stephen, good morning. Officials here saying this is still a very active crime scene. It's dangerous to try to get closer in to that warehouse, but they are going to try to get some crews in by this morning. In the meantime, though, you have families who are still heartbroken, who are struggling, who have so many questions about their loved ones. And unfortunately, this is not the only incident involving fireworks happening around the country.
Overnight, more dramatic fireworks incidents bringing calls for safety on July 4th.
There is active fireworks. We're going to hold everybody in the defensive mode.
Fireworks sparking a multi-house fire in the San Fernando Valley in California. Over 100 firefighters responding to the massive blaze. Also in the Los Angeles area, a person was killed in a separate apparent fireworks explosion, according to the Ventura County Fire Department.
I felt like my whole body shake, like the loudest explosion I've ever heard.
2 others were also injured this week in New Mexico after fireworks exploded in the garage of a home. And in Missouri yesterday, a car driving into a fireworks stand injuring 5. Officials calling for caution. While this morning, many unanswered questions remain after this enormous explosion leveled a fireworks facility Tuesday afternoon outside of Sacramento. Fire officials say it's still too dangerous to search for victims.
We cannot move forward until the scene is safe.
7 people are unaccounted for, according to fire officials who have not released names. Marisol Ramos hasn't heard from her 3 sons who were working at the facility. She rushed to the warehouse the night of the explosion. And days later says she still doesn't have answers.
If they can do the job, let us do it. I'm willing to go in.
You want to search for your children?
I want to search for my kids.
The company, Devastating Pyrotechnics, saying in part, our focus will remain on those directly impacted by this tragedy, and we will cooperate fully with the proper authorities in their investigation as the community continues to search for answers.
And these fireworks here in this incident, they were professional grade fireworks, but experts do say that even if you're using them for personal use, and those are the ones you buy, it could still be extremely dangerous, and they're asking people to just be a little extra careful this holiday. Stephen?
Yeah, Camila, are there any steps people can take to try to be safe while celebrating?
Yeah, experts have a few tips if you want to set off your own fireworks during the weekend or today. They're asking, 1, make sure that you buy fireworks from a reputable dealer. 2, make sure you designate a very responsible and sober adult to light those fireworks. And 3, make sure you have a water bucket or a hose nearby so that if you have to put these fireworks out, you have something to do it with and you're doing it safely. They do say that if you do all these tips, you're going to not only have fun, but you're also likely going to be safe on this 4th of July holiday, Stephen.
A sober adult, a very important adjective there.
Yes.
All right, Camila Bernal, thanks so much. Well, in just a few hours, neighborhoods across the country will be filled with the booming sounds of those fireworks lighting up the night sky. And while it can be a lot of excitement and fun for us, it may not be that for your pets. Loud noises can trigger serious anxiety for your furry friend. According to the American Veterinary Medical Association, up to 50% of dogs may suffer from some form of noise phobia, with fireworks being one of the most common triggers. Dr. Ruth McPeat joins me now with more tips on how to keep our pets safe and calm today. She's a veterinarian and author of the book Lizette, the Vet, and Her Dog Jet. Dr. McPeat, thanks so much for joining us today on this 4th of July. I see your little friend there. I think that's Jet. Adorable.
This is Jet.
Oh, so festive today. I love that. And just to jump right in here, so many people just really wish they could just ask their dogs. I know I wish I could ask my dogs, so how are you feeling? What is bothering you? But that is unfortunately not the case. So what can we look for in our pets to figure out if they're anxious about the fireworks going off or even the lead up to it?
Well, some of the signs that your pet may be anxious are you may notice that your pet is panting more. You may see that they're pacing, that they're restless. Pets will try to escape when they're scared. They may be clinging to or hiding. A lot of pets will hide under furniture when they're frightened. But the key is not to wait until they're scared, but to take some preparations ahead of time. The first thing that I always recommend is that people leave their pets at home. Don't take them to the fireworks celebration because sadly this time of year, many pets get lost when they are frightened and they run away.
I have a dog, oh, right there on the left. Q already deals with a lot of anxiety. His brother with the black and white face doesn't really deal with anxiety as much day to day, but fireworks, it can really cause problems for any dogs, like 50% of pets, as we were saying. So what can we do to try to make them feel a little more comfortable? What actual steps can we take to help them out?
Well, I recommend that you keep your pet in a back room away from the door and windows. I recommend you turn on the radio and TV to drown out those scary noises. And then give your pet a new toy. So you want to give them something new and exciting to distract them, to keep them busy. Nylabone has all different kinds of toys and different flavors. They have toys that you can put treats inside of them so that you can keep your pet entertained longer. The goal is, again, really just to keep your pets busy and entertained so that they're not thinking about those scary sounds outside or the bright lights.
That is a great point. Distract them with food. Almost always a good way to go. Before we let you go, Dr. McPeat, wanted to ask you, it's been an incredibly hot June and July across the country. What tips do you have for owners to help keep their pets safe this summer whenever those temps continue to rise?
Well, it's really important that when it's really hot outside, people leave their pet at home with the fan on, the air conditioning, that they limit their pet's exercise, walk them in the early morning and evening when it's cooler. You want to check the ground before you go because they can burn their little feet. And of course, never leave your pet alone in a parked car for any amount of time. That's very dangerous. And always bring water with you. I do want to also say that today, for the 4th of July, people should make sure that all their pets have collars with ID tags and microchips because, again, so many pets get lost. You can also utilize calming products and talk to your veterinarian or local emergency clinic if your pet's really anxious about medications, because we do have things to help keep your pets calm.
Great advice. I'm so glad you said that about keeping those collars, because if your dog runs off, it's always a good idea to have them on, but especially at a time like this. Jet is so well behaved, just listening to your every word.
He's still sleepy.
Oh, yeah. Same here, honestly. Dr. McPeat, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great 4th.
You as well. Well, one of the biggest draws of summer is taking that boat out on the water. And with this holiday weekend now underway, a lot of people will be doing just that. But experts say a third of all boating accidents happen across Memorial Day, Labor Day, and the 4th of July. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock has showing us now what to do even before you leave the dock.
With the arrival of the summer heat, millions are making their way to the beautiful coastal waters by boat.
Oh my God, look!
But some recent scary moments.
Multiple people in the water.
From this June boat fire in the Bronx, prompting the rescue of nearly 24 people, to a tragedy on Lake Tahoe, where 8 died after their vessel capsized, are reminders of the dangers. The Coast Guard reported nearly 4,000 incidents last year, leading to more than 550 fatalities, with alcohol the leading known contributing factor. For guidance, we traveled to Key Harbor Marina in Waretown, New Jersey.
These little checks can actually save your entire day for a great trip and a safe trip.
Where Captain Walt Bond with CETO ran through a checklist of must-do tasks. Before you ever leave the dock. Starting with checking your oil and fuel gauge.
Number one reasons why CETO members call us is because the actual problems with their motors.
To making sure that your lifelines are locked in. From the boat's horn to a kill switch attached to the person behind the wheel, which automatically shuts off the engine when disconnected, to another critical tool, the navigation lights, a safety net for boaters who stay out after dark.
Just had a call the other night where a boat, he ran out of gas and his nav lights weren't working.
And CETO is accustomed to making service calls and rescues. Dozens of them on a 17-mile stretch of the Jersey coast. And not surprisingly, the 4th of July is a key date on the calendar for them. How stacked are the frequency of incidents around holidays?
We see a tremendous increase in call volume.
Once we hit the water, it's straight to the lagoons around Pebble Beach, a community with hundreds of boats. Do you find, by the way, that people are doing distracted boating?
Sometimes they'll sit there and they're on their phone, and next thing you know, they're running aground.
What about people drinking on the holidays and not being totally connected?
You get caught drunk driving on a boat, it doesn't also affect your boat, it also affects your driver's license in your car.
The hope for CETO, the Coast Guard, and local police.
And what you're going to do is hold it away.
Police.
And what you're going to do is hold it away at arm's length.
Is that these reminders.
And what you're going to do is hold it away at arm's length.
Is that these reminders light a clear path.
You'll be surprised how fast and easy that can be seen.
Of simple steps to take.
But this year, they face one of the toughest summer job markets in recent years. For more on this, let's bring in Investopedia Editor-in-Chief Caleb Silver. Caleb, good morning to you. Happy 4th of July. So figures for May show only around 35% of 16 to 19-year-olds were working or looking for jobs. That's down 2% from last year and maybe the lowest May level since the pandemic. So how big of a deal is this actually, and do we know why it's happening?
Yeah, it's a transition in the way the workforce actually is working these days. Fewer teens looking for work, fewer teens actually getting hired. And a lot of the traditional jobs that teens might have taken during a summer vacation, either those have been automated or there's more competition for those jobs, or the businesses that usually hire those teens may want full-time workers, not just 2 to 3 months. So it's a little more challenging for teens this summer. We got an unemployment rate for teens that is 13.1%, and only about 1 million teens are going to get hired this summer. That's the lowest rate since 2010. So we're kind of at very low levels in the cycle, and that's a lot of the reason is the workforce is really changing a lot, and what we used to do as teenagers is just not available.
So these jobs, exactly where are they going? Are they just hiring full-time people instead of going after part-time employees, which most teenagers would be?
Yeah, in some cases, but when you think about cashiers, a lot of that has been automated with self-checkout, or you think about even ordering at a fast food restaurant. A lot of that you can do through a kiosk right now. So you have a little bit of a softening there, plus a decline in tourism. A lot of the jobs that teens pick up during the summer, those are in leisure and hospitality. And while you can probably still get a job bussing tables in some cases or working at a hotel, if there's less tourism, there's less demand for workers, and that demand might already be saturated with people who are in those jobs. So that is part of the reason as well. But teens can get creative about how they look or approach to finding a job or finding work or a way to make money during the summer.
So how do you think this is shaping up in the time ahead, in the years ahead? Will this teen summer job market rebound in the coming years, or do you think this could be a more permanent shift?
I think this is a demographic change on the one hand, and a change in the way the workforce operates on the other hand. But if you think about what we used to do as teens, bussing tables, lifeguarding, a lot of those jobs are still available and you can get them. It's just going to be more competitive to find those jobs, and there's going to be more competition for those jobs. With less immigration, you're going to have a tighter job market for teens. So they got to get creative, find other ways to make money during the summer, maybe apprenticeships and internships.
And Caleb, just quickly here, in case some teens and their families are watching, where can they go? What sector should they look for to try to get one of these jobs?
Yeah, leisure and hospitality is always important, but think about online assistance as well and social assistance. A lot of the hiring has been in the healthcare and social assistance areas of the market right now. That could be continue to be babysitting, or that could be childcare, or that could be helping out in the community with elder people. Social assistance, healthcare, those are popular places right now. Construction and landscaping. You know, mowing lawns, just like we used to do in the past, that's still popular. It's just very competitive.
All right, good to know. I was a lawnmower, so I appreciate that tip. Thanks so much, Caleb Silver. All right, now to a rising real estate trend. It's happening underground, literally. The bunker business is booming right now. Decked out survival shelters meant to protect against storms, fires, maybe even an apocalypse or two, are now becoming a major selling point for some. NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor got a first-hand look at why they're becoming so in demand.
What does $2.2 million get you in a house these days?
Well, they spent over $50,000 just on the staircase.
Oh, wow. Top-of-the-line hardware, sleek finishings, plenty of space, and behind a door in the finished basement.
And this is the safe room.
So even though this looks like a regular room, it's not a regular room.
It's not a regular room. Reinforced ceiling, walls, steel door.
Wow.
The seller of this Virginia home says she wanted somewhere her family could shelter in case of a bad storm.
But it's good to know you have a safe room in case anything ever happens.
It's part of a growing trend, Americans hardening their homes against the shifting world outside.
You gotta be reasonable. You don't prepare for apocalypse or anything like that.
But for some investing in bunkers, the apocalypse is exactly what they're worried about.
And there's just bunkers as far as the eye can see, but every single one of them is sold.
Ron Hubbard is in the bunker business, and he says business is booming.
We have a waiting line that's anywhere from 3 months to a year out.
He says a good portion of his clients are planning to ride out extinction-level events, like a super deadly pandemic, all-out nuclear war, or societal collapse. Scenarios clearly top of mind and explored in recent hit shows like Amazon's Fallout.
Well, there hasn't been a nuclear incident, has there?
Hulu's Paradise, HBO's The Last of Us, and more. Hubbard's company, Atlas Survival Shelters, offers everything from small concrete shelters.
You have a hatch up there, you go down a ladder.
To sprawling underground bunkers designed with long-term comfort in mind.
No one said that being in a bomb shelter, that you had to feel like you're in a Colombian jail cell.
The price of peace of mind? Anywhere from $20,000 to millions. Hubbard says politics seems to play a big role in who decides to shell out for shelter.
It's about 99% conservative Republicans, Christians, that buy the underground bunkers.
In fact, the bunker market is so hot, Hubbard says he's even working with a developer to build dozens of houses with bunkers pre-installed. One consulting firm forecasting the bomb and fallout shelter market will grow from about $140 million this year to more than $175 million in 2030. Hubbard says a significant amount of interest is coming from the ultra-wealthy.
High net worth people, their main concerns, number one is going to be a biological event. Number two is going to be civil unrest. And number three is going to be nuclear fallout. And it's exactly in that order.
Experts are skeptical the trend will have an impact. They say it's one thing to survive day one, but what about day 100?
Day 100 is a day you're probably not even making it to, I'm sorry to say.
Doug Rushkoff, author of Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires, is not optimistic.
Day 100 in your bunker is the day you find out that you're not making it to day 200 because there's been a meltdown of 3 nuclear power plants within 100 miles of your location.
Hubbard has a different take.
You may say I'll go down with the ship, but trust me, If you can get on a lifeboat, you get on a lifeboat.
Even if the apocalypse is a ways off, in a world where climate change-driven storms and wildfires are the new norm, for many, a lifeboat doesn't seem like a bad idea. A recent survey finding 74 million Americans are prepping for a disaster, spending about $11 billion a year, with more millennials and Gen Zers stocking up on survival kits and medical supplies than older generations.
Our particular business has grown immensely over the last 5 years.
North Carolina-based U.S. Safe Room makes a variety of shelters geared toward companies or people looking for protection from tornadoes, wildfires, and storms. A 2024 FEMA survey also finding 83% of respondents taking at least 3 preparedness actions for a disaster, up significantly from previous years. But there's prepping and then there's bunkering. And Rushkoff maintains surviving long-term is more about community than confinement.
It really takes a lot of people to survive.
Humanity's best chance for survival may not be in rising from the ashes, but preventing the fire in the first place. Yamiche Alcindor, NBC News.
All right, Yamiche, thanks. Well, coming up, he's back and he's hungry for hot dogs. That's right, competitive eater Joey Chestnut is returning to Coney Island for this year's 4th of July hot dog eating contest after missing out last year. More on his quest to reclaim that crown.
If you want to drop your
people, you know, was known for the professors and doctors and had an incredible history. And hopefully we can bring it back again. Bull riders, 1/10 of 1%. That's not a lot, but it's people die. When you're president, it's about 5%. If somebody would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have run. Okay? This is a very dangerous profession. Yeah, please. By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? Or not? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead.
On Iran.
You tell me when it gets boring. Okay.
If Iran.
Are you from Iran?
No, I'm not from Iran. I'm from the UK. But if the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
Have you had any conversations?
Turned out to be unbelievable. But, you know, our incredible flyers and I call them the shots, these guys are unbelievable. Think, from 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much smaller than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, deeper, blowing up. Incredible, incredible thing. I don't know if you heard the general, he was very impressive. Raisin Cane. You know, he's the one that beat ISIS for me. And he did it in a matter of weeks. And I was told it was going to take 4 or 5 years. And when I got this job, I always said, if I get this job, I'm going to put that guy as the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Dan Kane, and he, when I heard his name was Raisin, his nickname is Raisin Cane. I said, you got to be kidding. So I liked him right from the beginning, but he knocked out ISIS in a time that nobody ever thought possible. And when this attack was completed and so successful, I said, now I know how you knocked out ISIS so quickly. But we have the best people, we have the best equipment in the world. You know, I rebuilt the military during my 4 years, during my other term. We have the best equipment in the world. The problem is we gave away, you know, a lot of it, but small, relatively speaking. We gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan. Shouldn't have happened. That just shows how incompetent they were. They gave all that equipment away, billions and billions of dollars worth. Shouldn't have happened, but that was small compared to what we have. Now we have a great military with great people. Okay. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, congratulations. A couple of very different questions. One is Rwanda, 1994. As you grew up in New York, we all knew how horrific those attacks were. Congratulations on that treaty. There are talks that perhaps...
That's going to take place today at 3 o'clock in the Oval Office. We're going to have a signing with Rwanda and the Congo. So I'm a little out of my league in that one because I didn't know too much about it. I knew one thing. They were going at it for many years and with machetes. It is one of the worst wars that anyone's ever seen. And I just happened to have somebody that was able to get it settled. I mean, just a brilliant person who is very comfortable in that part of the world. It's a very dangerous part of the world. I said, are you uncomfortable there? People are being killed. School children are being raided and killed. And I don't even want to say how, but as viciously as I've ever heard. Are you uncomfortable? No, that's the part of the world that I know. Very comfortable. Was able to get them together and sell it. And not only that, we're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here. They never thought they'd be coming to. Look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me, they never thought they'd ever be coming to the White House, and they're so honored. And so we're going to give them a great big reception. But that's after many years of fighting. It's a great thing. That's at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Sir, are you concerned at all about secret nuclear sites in Iran? You talked about maybe just
secret nuclear site?
Yes, there might be some that
not
are
really.
on the radar.
Can I tell you, they're exhausted, and Israel's exhausted too. And I dealt with both of them, and they both wanted it settled, both of them, and we did a great job. But they're exhausted. The last thing they're thinking about right now is nuclear. You know what they're thinking of? They're thinking about tomorrow, trying to live. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. The place was bombed to hell. And no, I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm putting out a little statement. I'm going to respond to the Ayatollah's statement yesterday that we won the war. Oh, God, we won the war. And I said, look, you're a man of great faith, a man who's highly respected in his country. You have to tell the truth. You got beat to hell. And Israel was beat up too. They were both beat up. And it was a great time to end it. It was quick. They got the hate out. There was a lot of hate, a lot of hate. It would be great if they didn't have that hate. But the last thing they're thinking about is nuclear weapons right now. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Iris Tao with NTD Research Media with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much for doing this. It's very refreshing for all of us here.
It's a good group.
In this room.
It's refreshing.
Very refreshing. Yes, we haven't
Probably.
had this in, for the
I understand what you mean.
So thank you so much for coming out here.
Other than Caroline's done a great job.
Yes.
You're referring to the past administration, not to Caroline, right?
Yes. Back to the ruling today, if you don't mind. So you have always talked about winning for the American people.
Right.
How do you think today's ruling will enable you to further deliver for American families and workers across the country, not only when it comes to immigration, but also when it comes to trade, energy? What actions are you most eager to move forward
Well, I
with
think
now?
taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous, this is such a big day. This is such a big day. It's like, it's sort of sad because we're doing the signing at 3 o'clock, and this may very well dominate the signing of a big war that was going on and really affecting the continent of, think of it, the entire continent of Africa was being affected. And we're settling that war today, and this will probably be a headline. But this is a very big moment, and it gives power back to people that should have it, including Congress, including the presidency. And it only takes bad power away from judges. It really doesn't take it takes bad power, sick power, and unfair power. And it's really going to be, this is a very monumental decision. Yeah, please.
Yes, President, thank you very much. On July 9th, is that July 9th date set for tariffs to snap back? Or could there be a...
We can do whatever we want. We could extend it. We could make it shorter. I'd like to make it shorter. I'd like to just send letters out to everybody. Congratulations, you're paying 25%. He doesn't want... He's a much nicer person than I am. Go ahead. You finish it up?
considering for the Federal Reserve then? And are you speeding up that process? I see Secretary.
Oh, he's terrible. He's terrible. I mean, I have a list of things. We're like 38 on the list. We pay, you know, Cameroon and different places are paying the same as us. Because, you know, you have somebody sets a rate at 4% or 4.5%. It's hard to go out and say we should be paying 1% when you have your so-called experts doing it. And the sad part is, you know, as per the question that you asked about tariffs, we've had the tariffs and we have less inflation than we had before. What we have is a hell of a lot more money, a hell of a lot more income, and we shouldn't be paying a rate like that. In other words, when we pay a rate, I'll tell you, each point is the equivalent of $300 billion. So if we had it down 3 points, because I think we should be at 1, you have Switzerland is at 0.25. In other words, 25% of 1%. And they're the number 1 right now. But we should be the number 1. And soon you're going to have, I think, you're going to have where the people will pay will pay like we had a few years ago, where you put up money, you loan money, and I mean, you actually, instead of paying, you get paid. I love that. I don't know if it's any good, but I love it, where you put up money and you get paid. But we should be in a category, so we should be at the top of the list, not toward the bottom of the list. But we have a man who's not a smart man, and he probably has Trump derangement syndrome. And he's just not a smart person. What he's doing, though, he's hurting us for years to come. Because if we borrow money at 2 points higher than we should be paying, that's $600 billion. Wouldn't you say those numbers are about right, Scott? So it's 2 points would be about 600, actually more than that, but about $600 billion, all because the guy doesn't want to lower the rates. He is doing the service, a very disservice. And then he goes up and talks about, I'd like to see costs come down. You know, he gets up and he does his little thing for 5 minutes, then he goes out and he goes back to the beach. He goes, I'd like to see costs come down. Well, he could lower the interest cost by $900 billion a year. All he has to do is lower rates. And everybody's saying, I was watching some of the business shows today, and they're saying, you know, Trump's right. He should really be cutting. The country's doing well. We have no inflation. Now, despite his, because they don't say the right words, but I want to correct. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. I may change my mind about that. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have. I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This had to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to win. People didn't, I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years, but they've used it. The cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in, and what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
New Jersey, as far as what information we've gleaned about the victims, according to the city there of Plainfield, 79 years old and a 25-year-old man were, according to the city, Kate, pulled off one of those trees that was uprooted. As you're looking at some of this powerful imagery.
48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill to a yes.
Well, look, it's a great bill. It's a massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%.
Or maybe storm surge. We had water levels rise 22 to 26 feet in under an hour. I mean, at 4 in the morning on a national holiday. So you're talking campgrounds. We've got livestock that's all been washed into the river. There's rescue swimmers that are going up and down the river as we speak, trying to look for people or any way they can possibly help. There are boats rushing to the scene. So this was the thunderstorm complex that produced up to this foot of rain. Still numerous flash flood warnings. This pink is where we still have a flash flood emergency. And you could just see it. This thunderstorm complex just did not move. And this is Texas hill country. So the foot of rain is in the hills, then it all collects into small rivers and streams, and then it rushes down. And that's why they were describing this almost like a wave. So San Angelo, you had a flash flood emergency last night, almost 12 inches of rain. Near Menard, almost 12 inches of rain. Further to the south, Kerrville, this is the town that appears to have the worst devastation and the second worst flooding in the city's history. A lot of businesses, a lot of homes were flooded. Hopefully people got out of the way, but this is where the sheriff has reported fatalities. And now all that river, the water is heading downriver, and it's going to continue into Comfort and even further south of that. There are evacuations all across the river. We won't know how bad it is, Kate, until later on this afternoon or this evening. The water levels are going down, but all the devastation's done.
Yeah, it's just horrible. And I wish we weren't talking about it, but we do want to ask about the rest of the country, too, because it is the 4th of July. What's the forecast like?
Yeah, so much of the country is not going to have anything close to bad weather like that. I mean, there's really nice weather up and down the East Coast. We do have thunderstorms in Florida this afternoon. We're hoping that they end in time for people can get in their fireworks festivities after about 9 o'clock. And even as we head towards tomorrow, as people start heading in the opposite direction, there's not a lot of bad weather out there. Even that flash flooding threat will go by. The only thing we do have to watch, Kate, we could have a tropical depression or maybe a weekend tropical storm forming off the southeast coast over the weekend. Unfortunately, for the people that are on the beaches, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, it's not good. Rip currents will be very dangerous.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you so much. Overnight, Russia launched its largest aerial attack on Ukraine since the start of that war 3 years ago. Take a listen to the emergency air raid sirens and drone explosions reverberating through the capital city of Kyiv. Wow, Ukraine's military says the attacks included about 540 drones and 11 ballistic missiles. At least 23 people have been reported injured or hospitalized. Meanwhile, the office of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he and President Donald Trump spoke on the phone just a short while ago following Russia's attack. The White House has tried to broker a ceasefire deal, as you may know, between the two countries for months now. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez has been following all this, joins us with details. Raf, what more do we know about President Trump's conversation with Zelensky today? He also had a phone call with Putin yesterday that he's talked about. Did we have any indication that Russia would be launching this attack?
Yeah, Kate, so starting with that call with President Putin, President Trump was actually uncharacteristically frustrated, pessimistic coming out of that phone call. He said that he made no progress at all in this effort to get to a ceasefire. Take a listen to what he told reporters yesterday.
We had a call. It was a pretty long call. We talked about a lot of things, including Iran. And we also talked about, as you know, the war with Ukraine. And I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy.
Did you make any progress with him on a deal with Ukraine? Do you feel like you made any progress with him?
No, I didn't make any progress with him today at all.
So you have President Trump there, frustrated with his conversation with Putin. He then spoke today to Volodymyr Zelensky. That seems to be, from the Ukrainian side at least, a more positive call. The Ukrainian president saying he discussed with President Trump working together to defend Ukrainian skies against those massive drone attacks that we have seen over the last couple of nights. This is, though, Kate, the first call between those two leaders since the U.S. paused the delivery of some weapon shipments to Ukraine, including those crucial Patriot interceptor missiles, which the Ukrainians say they need if they're going to fend off these Russian attacks. Kate.
All right, Raf Sanchez for us. Thank you so much. There's much more to come on NBC News Daily. Stay with us.
If you want to drop your auto insurance rate, then don't skip this video. Take a look. I've removed my personal info, guys. from $140 per month down to just $45 per month. Same great coverage, but this one is way cheaper. How? Your insurance company doesn't want you to see this, but I'm not going to gatekeep. There is a free comparison tool that can help you get a cheaper rate. Let me show you how to access
things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders, I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, you went from being a dead country, you are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country, and you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for that question. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about trade. Secretary Bessent has said that he hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay where they are now?
Well, there's some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of a trillion, a trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charge just tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year on trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them, and they don't like it. So they're upset because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even. Or they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit. Or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go. Go ahead. Red dress.
On the 2020 election, is there any more information on the special prosecutor? So many Americans still have questions about the 2020 election. And speaking of rogue judges, would you consider appointing somebody at DOJ maybe to investigate the judges that allowed for the political persecution of you, your family, and your supporters during the Biden administration?
I love you. Who are you?
I'm Kara from Lindell TV.
Well, it's just a very nice question. And it's not a setup. I have no idea who you are, but I appreciate that question. All I can say is we're not here for that. I hope so. I hope they're doing a thing because that election was rigged and stolen, and we can't allow that to happen. A lot of people tell me, sir, you just won the greatest election in the history of our country. You won at numbers that won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything. Sir, go on with your life. And many people say that, good people, friends of mine. Then you have people that say that same thing, go on with your life, but you have to find out what happened because you can't let that happen again. Look at what this lunatic did. Look at what he did. He opened our borders to people that were murderers. 11,008. President Putin called up and he said, I'd love to help you with Iran. I said, do me a favor. I'll handle Iran. help me with Russia. We got to get that one settled. And I think something's going to happen there. But we did some great work. India and Pakistan. That was going to be maybe nuclear. We did that. We did a lot of work. I don't know if there's ever been a precedent that's done much more. Serbia, Kosovo was going to go at it. Going to be a big war. I said, you go at it. There's no trade with the United States. They said, well, maybe we won't go at it. That's what happened with India and Pakistan. I was negotiating with both of them, and I said to Scott, I said to Howard, cancel all deals with India and Pakistan. They're not trading with us because they're in a war. They called back, what do? I said, look, you want to have trade with the United States, it's great. But you want to go and start using nuclear weapons on each other? We're not going to allow that. And they both agreed. Both have great leaders. They both agreed not to do it. So we did a lot. But I appreciate that question.
Plus the devices all around you. Radiation comes from everywhere, but here you're completely shielded from it by the salt.
Salt also conducts heat well, meaning that warm radioactive waste can cool down without damaging the salt walls significantly. On top of that, contrary to rock, it can expand and flow, sealing and filling cavities of its own accord, making it hard to permeate. So great in theory, if there wasn't this not-so-tiny problem with the water. Because the biggest problem the Asse has is that there is a lot of water that's leaking into the tunnels. There are more than 500 leaks in the mine. The Asse, including the chambers with radioactive waste, could fill up with this water. To stop that from happening, the operator BGE is collecting it. We're headed to the main water collection point inside the mine.
Up there you can see stalactites on the ceiling. It's definitely wet there. That's the liquid we're catching in the storage basins. What's coming out here now is water that's fully saturated with salt. That means no more rock salt is able to dissolve in the water because there's already so much of it. It enters here from outside of the mine. What's flowing along here into this basin is about 90% of the solution that comes into the mine.
Today, about 12,000 liters of water pour in every day. It has to be checked for contamination.
This water is uncontaminated and can be exempted by the Radiation Protection Agency, and it can be transported above ground.
And the remaining 10% of the water?
It enters at other points of the mine, some of it close to the waste, so a small part of the water is also contaminated. Right now, it's not as if this water can somehow get into the environment, but as we can't guarantee that this will remain so, we have to remove the waste.
But the incoming water is not the only problem. When the salt mine was operational, nobody thought this would become a storage place for nuclear waste. To maximize profits, many tunnels were dug close to each other. Safety precautions and support structures were reduced to a minimum to mine as much salt as possible. The pressure of the rock surrounding the salt constantly pushes against the mine and causes cracks. That's why over 90% of the mine had to be filled up with salt and concrete to stabilize it. And also why a total of over 600 people work here to monitor and further secure the mine. The big question really is, how could this have happened?
Back then, they also wanted to save money by reusing a mine.
Frank Ehrlich heads the Asse Information Center.
The mine was closed in 1964 because it was no longer profitable. This just happened to be when the government was looking for a waste facility. And they ultimately decided on the Asse 2 pit, a decision that's always been controversial due to the geology, the mine's relatively advanced age, and the risk of leaks.
Did people know back then that there might be problems?
They could potentially have known, but ultimately came to a different assessment. But they had been told about the risks back then.
The growing nuclear sector needed a dumping ground fast, so the risks were downplayed. The entire project was supposed to be a quick fix, with little to no thought spared for the long-term consequences. At first, ASA was declared to only be a research storage facility, used for medical and scientific waste only. But actually, almost all of the intermediate and low-level waste from West German nuclear reactors was then dumped here. In the beginning, the waste was stacked. But after a while, barrels were literally dumped into the mine to reduce the radioactive exposure of the truck drivers. Dump trucks also drove over the waste, damaging many of the barrels. Energy companies didn't pay anything to store their waste until 1975. And we don't even exactly know which type of waste was dumped, because the documentation was very poorly and vaguely done. In 1988, water starts leaking in. Multiple mining shafts collapse, but the public is only informed about the magnitude of the problem almost 10 years later. In 1997, the operator suggests closing the mine with all of the waste inside. The plan does not mention anything about the long-time safety and possible contamination. In 2008, the news breaks that water has been coming into contact with radioactive waste for years. Pools of contaminated water had been collecting right in front of the chambers containing it, and the operator had disposed of it inside the mine without permission. In 2010, it turns out that 10 times more intermediate nuclear waste is stored than was estimated before. Years of political mishaps involving nuclear power prompt protests across Germany. Finally, in 2013, the law Lex Asse is enacted. The government decides that the mine is too dangerous and the waste needs to be taken out.
20, 26, 25, 2, 1. Vielen Dank. Keine Kontamination.
Happy about that. I know there's a lot of stabilization work and so on going on down there, but not the best feeling to be that close to nuclear waste, to be honest.
The problem is, a big removal like this has never been done before.
The first thing we need to do is explore the 13 emplacement chambers to determine the composition of the surrounding rock and the condition of the waste.
Since many of the barrels are damaged, no human can enter the chambers. They have to be surveyed by remote-controlled cameras like this one and retrieved by remotely operated machines. A new shaft must be built to transport the barrels out.
The challenge is the boundaries presented by the hill. The mine continues to change structure. We have leaks that present a certain danger. And that's why we need to be aware that time is running out. The worst-case scenario would be leaking that would no longer be manageable, so we'd have to close the mine with radioactive waste remaining underground. Then radioactive material could eventually come up to the surface.
And
Man,
even if we ignore that frightening...
This sounds horrendous, potentially. Pole shift or something. That sounds like maybe why Europe is blown up into pieces, islands in the Edgar Cayce maps of the future, because this facility and things like this and all the crazy stuff that could be nuclear facilities and whatnot in the ground and whatnot, all the things they have, ancient history, bombs, World War II, stuff like that. Oh man, no wonder. Like, look, I'm gonna show you real quick. Let's go to this screen. All right, watch. Look at Europe on this map, future potential map. Look at it, it's gone. It's, if you can see, Europe's pretty much gone. Let's see, where is it? This is a good one. Look at, there's Africa. This is potential possibilities here from a pole shift. Oh, here we go. This is it. Look at that. Germany is right here somewhere, right? Or here. Look at that. Crazy, huh?
Scenario, all of this is going to cost a lot of money. Just preparing for the removal will cost an estimated 4.7 billion euros. And that does not include any of the retrieval itself, which is scheduled to start in 2033. The waste is supposed to be sorted in an interim overground facility and then transported to, well, where exactly?
What we need is a final storage place for the radioactive waste, which we don't have yet. So for now, we have to store the waste temporarily. That's the issue that's causing a lot of debate right now. We have an open patch of land here in the Asse Hills, and we'd like to set up the treatment facility and a temporary storage facility here. That's our plan, although there is local opposition to the location.
Because the Asse mine isn't in a super remote area. Only about 2 kilometers south of it is the village of Remling-Semstedt, home to a protest group that Heike Wiegel co-founded.
There's supposed to be a new shaft and a new chimney, and these are considerable additional burdens for this region.
It's a symbol of a time when nuclear power had to succeed, no matter what. And the long-term consequences of the new technology were largely downplayed or ignored.
There are many different methods of contraception. The most common is sterilization, a surgical procedure that makes a man or woman infertile. The UN has estimated that more than 200 million women worldwide have been sterilized. That's all well and good if it's a personal decision, but forced sterilization is still widespread.
Liz Esquega had always dreamt of having a big family. But after giving birth to 2 daughters, she was unable to have any more children. Her fallopian tubes had been severed by white doctors during surgery and against her will.
I had never told my family up until that.
That's at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Sir, are you concerned at all about secret nuclear sites in Iran? You talking about maybe just
secret nuclear site?
Yes, there might be some of those.
Not really. Can I tell you? They're exhausted.
Components to possibly have a dirty bomb.
Millions are expected to gather along the East River for tonight's fireworks, but it comes amid increasing tensions overseas, particularly in the Middle East since the start of the Israel-Gaza.
Hi, Anita.
Canada used to have legislation that allowed the forced sterilization of Indigenous women. This was repealed in the early 1970s, but after the birth of her daughter, Anita Piccinese had an experience that left her body violated and her feeling too ashamed to talk about it.
You really need to get your tubes tight. I said, well, I want to have more babies. I'm only 26, I want more. And I did it because that nurse was like, really, she goes, you're going to get cancer and this and that. And then I'm it's like scaring me.
Women have filed lawsuits against the authorities in a number of regional provinces, including 5 class actions. The federal government has provided a $6 million fund for survivors, but new legislation criminalizing forced sterilizations is making very sluggish progress, say those affected. But there
That is violet. There's where all my feed is. I'll go ahead and weigh it out on the scale. 26. When I grow up, I would love to be a cattle rancher. It's truly one of my passions. I love having to raise an animal with the best life possible. Hi, this is root beer. It's super cute. So it's actually short for root beer float because, as you can see, his brown color and the white, if you think about a root beer float. So the process of getting him was quite simple. I actually signed up on the Catch a Calf page, and then I got an email that said my cow was ready for pickup. When I got him, he was like really wild and crazy, but he was super small. Like you can see, he was up to my waist level, and now he's almost up to my chest. I've just built that bond with him and that trust with him. I got lucky. He's just such a good boy. And it's like a dog. You're all curious, huh?
Time. She and Ben meet one of the new midwives. Alana is unable to talk about what was done to her during the birth of her first daughter, Lily, except that she'll never be going to a hospital again.
We would, honestly, the most preferred place would be home, inside of our home. So that's the number one option that we would have, aside from here.
Finally, the big day has arrived for Jody Gadwa Cardinal, too. This is her first day on the job as a douala on the reservation. For her, a labor of love that enables her to keep her community's traditions alive.
So we've been asking for guidance from our knowledge keepers and our elders, on how to run this program, in a good way, and bringing birth back to our community. When our women are in labor, we fan them down and smudge them as they're going through their contractions.
The children should be born on the land because their ancestors were born on the land. They weren't born in the hospitals.
A stone is passed around. The women talk frankly about their hopes and fears.
My mother had a very traumatic delivery. So traumatic that she decided to never have children again. So they never sterilized her, but they sterilized her up here.
It takes a little bit of way of being afraid, to become a mother, that we have guidance and women like you.
The midwives program is still in its infancy, but with the community soon to get its own new birthing house, there's a spirit of optimism.
We'll bring healthy children and healthy families into our community, and that through the generations, our people will begin to heal.
Jody knows she faces high hopes and challenges, and giving women here renewed courage and confidence will also protect them from injustice. Ouyang's endless headaches have rendered him almost deaf and barely able to walk. But as a neighbor accompanies him to the doctor, they first have to go to the local recycling facility to return plastic bottles. It's the only way he can afford to see a doctor.
One of these kids is going to end up as a cattle producer, but they've all now had an experience with raising animals. They start to understand that. Each kid has a sponsor. Bryson was somebody that I ended up sponsoring because I live somewhat close to him. When he came to pick up his calf, he was wide-eyed. I don't know if he even owned a cowboy hat or cowboy boots. He didn't have a clue. But Bryson is one of these kids that absolutely wanted to learn.
How are you? Good, how are you? When I brought him in here, he was kind of freaking out a little bit.
I cannot believe it's the same young man. He has grown so much, he's confident, he understands animals.
Good luck. Is it easy? Easy question. Oh, perfect.
Today, the kids will have the interview judging this afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
They have to get kind of dressed up. They have a question. They all have the same question. They have to give a little speech.
It's stuck together. All right.
And then they have judges ask them questions.
I definitely learned patience.
Holy moly. Is it working now? Oh, yeah.
And then their record books, they'll be graded today.
We were printing my record book.
You want me to poke some holes in those for you?
Yes, to keep track of like everything about the calf, really. I was the last one here with my steer, the last one to turn in a record book. It's almost like this is my first year ever showing anything. Whoa. Whoa. The record book is done. I'm more nervous about the show itself, but we'll see how it goes from here. I got here at 5:45, even before the doors open.
We're just doing spot cleaning right now because we only have like 3.5 hours to get all this stuff done.
What they don't tell you about weight loss by saying us.
I'm stressed. I'm kind of ready to just get it over with, to be honest with you.
Those policy changes rather than having things temporary, businesses not being able to plan. So I do think that that's going to make a real difference here going forward.
And what about the tariffs? It's still, it slowly, it seems to be more clarity, but still something's up in the air here.
No, absolutely. And the tariffs are one place where there is a lot of uncertainty. And that's where you've seen businesses pulling back, right? Because there's been a reluctance to invest more as a result of not knowing actually what the costs are and stuff. So while we've got great news on the tax bill, and it does create some certainty, there is the lingering problem of the tariffs out there. No doubt about that.
Well, hopefully we get more clarity. It seems to be coming slowly but surely. Rosemary, Becky, thank you so much, and happy Independence Day.
Happy 4th.
All right, we have more of today's top stories coming up for you next. Stay with us.
The one thing I'm kind of nervous about is he's super noisy when he gets in there. Moo, moo, moo.
You want my hat?
No, I can't wear a hat. Excuse me. Sorry.
Easy, buddy.
Well, on behalf of the National Western Stock Show, I'd like to welcome you to the Catch It Calf program.
First show ever.
This is the fun part. This is where you've worked hard for.
I know. I don't know what I'm doing though.
So showmanship is very much where you're showing yourself off.
And just see how good you can do.
And so that's like a lot of contact with the judge, that kind of, you don't want your back towards the judge, but just go in there and try your best at this point.
Okay, yeah.
Up first in the program is showmanship. The purpose of showmanship is to present the animal in a manner that these two judges will have a favorable impression on them.
So just follow everybody?
Showmanship teaches valuable lessons that can be applied to everyday life. These lessons include accepting responsibility, winning graciously, losing with dignity, and learning the amount of work and determination it takes to become a winner.
So this is probably the most anxious part of the whole show, is the standing and waiting in the holding ring. They stand for so long they get tired, and then they eventually will just lay down. I can bet there's probably one or two that will lay down in the ring today. We're hoping that it's not ours.
From Castle Rock, Colorado, Bryson McKim.
Good, how are you?
Good. Tell me
Good.
about what future impact you think this project will have on you.
I hope that I can mentor others, and I learned so much through this program, and just like even with relationships with other people.
Bryson has never shown cattle before this year, and he is now going to be 1, 2, or 3 in the showmanship, which is awesome.
Next up in our schedule for today for the Catch a Calf program will be the live placing phase of today's competition. There are 3 classes which have been divided by the weights of the calves.
You're rooting for you.
All right, here we go.
Our judges will be evaluating the steers for muscling, finish, and their structural soundness. These traits are important to the beef cattle industry today.
A lot to be proud of.
Thank you so much.
This steer next.
July 21st, 1861, the first major battle of the Civil War erupted. Known as the First Battle of Manassas in the South, it was a brutal clash between Union and Confederate forces, a battle that shattered illusions of a short war and signaled years of carnage to come. I'm Lucy Celia, and this is An American Place on Newsmax 2.
Welcome back to John Bachman Now. No, I'm not John. I hope he's having fun. I'm Bob Sellers. Let's get over to Alex Kramer with some other stories we're tracking today. Alex.
Hey there, thanks so much. Well, the Supreme Court is gearing up to take on the issue of banning transgender athletes from women's sports. The justices will specifically be hearing from Idaho and West Virginia, as more than half of the 50 states already have bans on trans athletes in women's sports. President Trump even cutting federal funding from schools that don't follow these bans. The Supreme Court will hear the case this fall and then rule on it next summer. And firefighters are now scrambling to contain California's largest wildfire of the year as it torches more than 50,000 acres. So officials say the Madre fire, blazing through Central California, is threatening at least 50 buildings and is only 10% contained so far. Santa Barbara County also issuing an evacuation warning for some residents near Highway 166, which is also down. Now, no word yet on what sparked this fire. And finally, gas prices hovering near the lowest summer level in 4 years. And Amazon is helping you save even more at the pump this 4th of July weekend. So Amazon Prime members receiving $1 off the cost of each gallon of gas for up to 35 gallons during one stop at BP, Amoco, or AMPM gas stations between today and July 6th. Gas Buddy projecting that a gallon of gas will cost an average of $3.15 today on July 4th. An estimated 61.6 million people are traveling at least 50 miles from their home between June 28th and July 6th for the holiday this year, and 1.3 million more than last year, actually. That's according to AAA. Those are just some of the stories we are following, but for breaking news, head to newsmax.com. Back over to you.
All right, thank you, Alex. Alligator Alcatraz just opened, and Democrats are already causing a scene. Find out what has them complaining next.
Each one.
Live now from Fox. All right, we are going to take this time to slide away for a 2-minute commercial break. On the other side,
Dad, and he's saying goodbye. We don't know. It feels a little bit like the steer knows.
Created by the Egyptian leader's proclamation that he would be willing to travel anywhere, even Jerusalem, to seek peace. President Carter persuaded the two former enemies to meet with him at Camp David to seek a lasting peace. On the 17th of September, 1978, the Camp David Accords were signed, returning the Sinai to Egypt and creating a framework by which Palestinians could have autonomous and self-governing control over the West Bank and Gaza. During the announcement, President Carter was clear more work needed to be done.
The questions that have brought warfare and bitterness to the Middle East for the last 30 years will not be settled overnight.
In 1978, President Anwar Sadat and Prime Minister Menachem Begin were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Jimmy Carter's Nobel Prize would come later in 2002 for his decades of work seeking solutions to international conflicts. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV. It was a night filled with stars as Hollywood came out in strength to honor its own at the 42nd Academy Awards. Nominated for Best Actor that year were Dustin Hoffman, Jon Voight, Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, and John Wayne. Born Marion Morrison in Winterset, Iowa, even at birth, the future movie icon was breaking records, weighing in at 13 pounds. After graduating from USC on a football scholarship, this young man became an aspiring actor, changed his name to John Wayne, and the rest became box office history. A veteran of some 150 films, Wayne received his first Best Actor Award nomination in 1939 for his role in The Sands of Iwo Jima. It would take more than 3 decades later, until April 7, 1970, before the Academy honored him once again. But this time, he won the Best Actor Award for his role as a one-eyed sheriff in True Grit.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think this is a great country.
Actress Maureen O'Hara, when asked to describe her friend, summed up the man best with 3 words: John Wayne, American. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
I was exhausted all the time.
Up on your screen. This is a celebration that we have coming to us out of Pleasant Hill, California. You can see even the animals are getting in on the 4th of July fun at this time. So wanted to showcase just a few of these live vantage points that we have as well. This one also coming to us out of Roseville, California as well. Yet another 4th of July parade getting ready to kick off. You can see how all of these golf carts there are decked out in their 4th of July decorations. Of course, we'll continue to bring you all of these vantage points here on Live Now from Fox. In the meantime, though, while we're showcasing how some of these other places around this country are celebrating 4th of July, we'd also like to know how you're celebrating. We're asking that you scan that QR code in the top right corner of your screen. Send in some of your photos so we can see how you're gathering today on Independence Day. We've already seen images of the children going out to celebrate some of those parades and participate, as well as some pretty good food as well.
Let them in, it's because they have something to hide.
So we're getting ready to leave the so-called alligator Alcatraz immigration detention camp because they're not letting us in. We have the statutory right as lawmakers to exercise oversight, not only over our state prisons, but also over detention facilities. It's very clear in the law, but they have something to hide and they don't want to let us in. And so, unfortunately, our questions remain unanswered.
Well, meanwhile, a representative with the agency overseeing the facility saying it's simply for safety concerns and we're actually told to return just at a later time. Joining us now, Republican strategist and founder of freepressfailed.com, Corinne Clark. Corinne, good to see you. Give me your thoughts. First of all, it seems like that was for show, the Democrats showing up. Now, maybe it was for show, the president showing up the other day. I get that. It's politics. But what was your take on that?
Yeah, I have to agree. It is definitely for show. And, you know, for the last 4 years under Biden, we didn't see anyone showing up at any of the detention centers. I know when Trump was president last time, we heard a lot about kids in cages, but then Biden's president, same cages exist. They don't do anything. I think it's a lot of drama. They love a good photo op and they think that that's this. But what I think they're really drawing attention to is the fact that Biden's border crisis created this problem, and we need facilities now like Alligator Alcatraz to solve a problem that they did absolutely nothing about for the last 4 years. So I think they're trying to get some good press, but it's bad press.
Yeah, you know, you're so right about that, because whenever the Democrats think bringing up what ICE is doing is a bad thing, to Trump supporters, that's a good thing. That's exactly what they wanted. And we can have arguments over whether it's being executed perfectly. We can talk about that at a later time. I did want to bring up this topic also. Elon Musk has hinted he wants to create a new political party, has even vowed to primary incumbent Republican members who are up for re-election next year in the midterms. Hours ago, Elon Musk posted a poll asking Americans if a third party should be created. The screen grab we got right here. Look at the numbers here. Okay, my eyes are really bad, but overwhelming majority of people, 62.9% saying yes, 37 saying no. What's your take on this?
Well, I understand Elon's a little hurt. I think he's done some great work for the country, and I hope that a lot of his legacy continues with Doge. Creating a third party, I think, would be a huge mistake, because what would happen is a lot of conservatives would vote for that third party. It would split the Republican Party vote, and the Democrats would end up winning. But what I do love is a very open primary process. I hope that we have that in 2028. And if we run some really strong fiscal conservatives and they come to the top, then that's who should lead our party. So we'll see how it works out. But I do think a two-party system is probably what we're stuck with for now, unless we want to hand the Democrats victory in 2028.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think, by the way, of somebody like Thomas Massie, who voted against a big, beautiful bill? I should put out there, I was born and lived until I was 13 in his district, so I understand the people there. They don't just fall in line to anybody, for that matter, and it looks like Thomas Massie isn't either. Do you think his job's at risk?
Well, we'll see. The voters will have a chance to make their voices heard this coming year in the midterm elections, and that's how it's supposed to work. I think there is some hypocrisy from Thomas Massie, because he did vote to raise the debt ceiling under Biden. Now he's taking this big ideological stance against Trump's bill, and people are wondering, if you felt so strongly, why did you let it slide this time, but not for Trump? And I think that that's where people get really upset. But of course, he is allowed to make his voice heard. If people agree with him, then his seat will be safe, and that's how it's supposed to work.
All right. I enjoy the red, white, and blue with you joining us today. Corinne Clark, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, we have a lot more still ahead on Newsmax. Appreciate you watching here on the 4th of July. There are many options, many things to be doing out there, and I hope you're able to be with family and friends and enjoy the day wherever you are, and enjoy the fact that we do live in the best country in the world. And there's a shot, memorable one right there. Stay with us. There's more coming up after this.
It used to be common. Our newscasters had common sense. They gave it to you straight, just the facts, and real news. John Bachman.
Till today, till this morning, people being wantonly killed, brazenly killed, because the United States is providing the means for this. So this is what's happening in Syria. Is the U.S. on the fence? Hardly. It's the major actor. I know, by the way, I know firsthand that in 2012, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon appointed former Secretary General Kofi Annan as special envoy to reach a peace in Syria. I loved Kofi Annan. I love Ban Ki-moon. I worked for both of them. Kofi Annan arranged a peace in 2012. He arranged a peace in Syria. You know why it didn't happen? Because all the parties agreed to peace except one. Literally one. That was the United States of America. The United States of America said there will be no peace unless Bashar al-Assad goes the first day. The other parties said, no, you can't just determine that. Maybe there'll be a process. Maybe there'll be elections agreed. Maybe there'll be a 2-year process, a 3-year process. The United States said no. Assad must go the first day of any agreement or we block it. And so Kofi Annan stepped down from his position after having negotiated a peace arrangement. And we have had 500,000 people dead since then. We should not allow this kind of criminality to be normal. This region has been at war nonstop for 30 years. Actually, I would say for at least 57 years since the Six-Day War, because there has been no honest accounting of international law, no honest diplomacy. It's been militarization all the way through. And we could have peace immediately in this region. All that is required, in my view, is the United States change its veto of Palestine as the 194th UN member state, because on that basis, all the region would normalize relations and the wars all across this region would stop. But Israel has had control over US policy, and it says no. It wants greater Israel. It wants Israel in Syria. It wants Israel in Lebanon. It wants Israel in the West Bank. It wants Israel in East Jerusalem. It wants Israel in Gaza. And until that stops, we're not going to have peace. So is the US on the fence? Of course not. It's the major protagonist of this whole war and has been for the last 14 years. I am not discussing the agency of the Syrian people. I'm discussing the opposite. Do not be naive. Do not think that 600,000 people died because of Assad and the protesters. This was a war. Wars are expensive. They require billions of dollars. They require armaments. And I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory. I'm talking about a conspiracy. And you should know. Everybody go look up Operation Timber Sycamore. Understand what happened in your region. And if you think that calling in the CIA is going to do the bidding of agency in this region, you are sadly mistaken. This region has been manipulated by Britain, France, and the United States for 100 years since the Versailles Treaty. It will not have safety or peace until the United States is out of this region through manipulation and war. You all say, well, it's Israel doing this. It's the same thing I'm talking about. It's the same reason for Operation Timber Sycamore. It's not an independent fact. It's the reason why this happened. I'm the last to denigrate agency. I'm telling you exactly the opposite. If you think your big friend, the United States, is going to do your bidding and help you get your way, empires divide to rule. They are not doing the bidding of Turkey or Syria or Lebanon or anybody else in this region. And if this is, yes, you want to balance Persia or Iran, you call in the United States to do that, and you think this is going to work out well? It's not going to work out well. This region has three major powers: the Arab world, the Turkish world, and the Persian world. It's been more than 1,000 years this way. I said to Iranian diplomats that Iran has been 5,000 years. I was corrected, 7,000 years. It's a long story. You don't need the United States to pull the chestnuts out of the fire. And don't believe that this happened because of agency of the Syrian people. I'm sorry, I'm not denigrating the Syrian people, just the opposite. I know what happened. I know what my country does. I suspect most of you do too. And it should not be ignored, because the wars are going to continue until we have real agency, not pseudo-agency. And by the way, there is no international community. We're trying to make one, but it doesn't exist right now. That's the tragedy in this world. There is no community. There are interests. There are militaries. There are regime change operations. This is not community. We need real community. And by the way, I give every day my volunteer time to the UN for 25 years because I believe in it. It's my life commitment. So I believe in community. I also happen to know that the United States blocked the agreement in 2012. I'm sorry, I won't elaborate. But the United States blocked it, and I know it.
Well, I know it too, Joe.
I know,
Okay.
but I think it's important for us to understand where this entire war came from. It did not come from Bashar al-Assad. It came from Washington. There was a decision in 2011 to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of the Israeli government that stretches back more than 25 years. Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011. We have a name for this program. It was Operation Timber Sycamore. The United States, together with other countries in this region, trained fighters, especially jihadists, including the ones that just took power, to overthrow the regime. This created chaos. 600,000 dead in Syria in a war that has gone on for 14 years. The outcome of this war is what the CIA wanted back in 2011, which is that a jihad group would take power in Syria after being armed by the United States. The reason I want to be clear about this is that we will not have peace in this region until we have...
What do you guys think? You think he's part of it and he's just trying to throw someone under the bus, maybe? Or like the U.S. because they're trying to bring down the U.S. maybe? Or what's going on here? Because, you know, we all know that the CIA would have to answer to somebody, right? Some questions. I don't know. Let me know. Tell me what you think.
Public diplomacy that is based on real diplomacy, not on CIA operations. And we will not have peace until Israel stops its militarization of the entire Middle East. Because the Syrian war is just one of 6 wars that Israel has promoted, including in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. We had the list, actually, from Wesley Clark back in 2001 when he was handed a paper in the Pentagon that the goal was 7 wars in 5 years. The only war that hasn't taken place yet, to Netanyahu's great consternation, is the US war with Iran, which Israel is still trying to instigate to this very day. So the Syrian war is part of a regional tragedy. We have tragedy in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, South Sudan, and Libya that I put at the hands of the United States government and its ally Israel, because none of these wars had to happen. These were all wars of choice. They were all wars that came from the idea of regime change operations, that the United States would determine which regimes operate in which countries. We'll never have peace in this region if outside imperial powers like the United States are dictating the terms to this region. The only way to have peace in this region is if this region is determining its own future, not outside powers. And Israel could never do these wars on its own. These are American wars. America provides the financing, it provides the military backup, it provides...
Yeah, but we have different politicians, right? We rotate them and stuff. And which politicians are getting paid by who and what interests? You know what I mean? Like, so blaming America is like too broad. It's like blaming a whole entire group of people without understanding the situation. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. You let me know. Hey, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, do those amazing things you do.
The naval support, it provides the intelligence operations, it provides the munitions. Israel couldn't fight for 1 day without the United States backing. Israel could not be committing a genocide in Gaza without the United States' full operational complicity. I don't mean political complicity, I mean direct, daily operational complicity. This has to end. This region has been divided for 100 years, first by the British Empire and then by the American Empire. And this is going on until today. We have a genocide going on right next door. Till today, till this morning. People being wantonly killed, brazenly killed, because the United States is providing the means for this. So this is what's happening in Syria. Is the U.S. on the fence? Hardly. It's the major actor. I know, by the way, I know firsthand that in 2012, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon appointed former Secretary General Kofi Annan as special envoy to reach a peace in Syria. I loved Kofi Annan. I love Ban Ki-moon. I worked for both of them. Kofi Annan arranged a peace in 2012. He arranged a peace in Syria. You know why it didn't happen? Because all the parties agreed to peace except one. Literally one. That was the United States of America. The United States of America said there will be no peace unless Bashar al-Assad goes the first day. The other parties said, no, you can't just determine that. Maybe there'll be a process, maybe there'll be elections agreed, maybe there'll be a 2-year process, a 3-year process. The United States said no. Assad must go the first day of any agreement or we block it. And so Kofi Annan stepped down from his position after having negotiated a peace arrangement, and we have had 500,000 people dead since then. We should not allow this kind of criminality to be normal. This region has been at war nonstop for 30 years. Actually, I would say for at least 57 years since the Six-Day War, because there has been no honest accounting of international law, no honest diplomacy. It's been militarization all the way through. And we could have peace immediately in this region. All that is required.
Here's something most drivers don't know. The older your
as the 194th UN member state, because on that basis, all the region would normalize relations and the wars all across this region would stop. But Israel has had control over US policy, and it says no. It wants greater Israel. It wants Israel in Syria. It wants Israel in Lebanon. It wants Israel in the West Bank. It wants Israel in East Jerusalem. It wants Israel in Gaza. And until that stops, we're not going to have peace. So is the U.S. on the fence? Of course not. It's the major protagonist of this whole war and has been for the last 14 years. I am not discussing the agency of the Syrian people. I'm discussing the opposite. Do not be naive. Do not think that 600,000 people died because of Assad and the protesters. This was a war. Wars are expensive. They require billions of dollars. They require armaments. And I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory. I'm talking about a conspiracy. And you should know. Everybody go look up Operation Timber Sycamore. Understand what happened in your region. And if you think that calling in the CIA is going to do the bidding of agency in this region, you are sadly mistaken. This region has been manipulated by Britain, France, and the United States for 100 years since the Versailles Treaty. It will not have safety or peace until the United States is out of this region through manipulation and war.